body a better.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Much more efficient.
But,
Okay, Sabrina, can we get started then? Sabrina, are we okay to start? Okay. I call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the August 3rd, 2026 study session of your Ashland City Council. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening and we are actually going to change the order of 2 of them. We have a number of folks who are here this evening to talk with us about the SERJAC Proclamation recommendation, and so we're going to do that after the question about the hospital. So that'll change the order, and then our consultants will come in and speak with us about the strategic plan via Zoom. So that's the order that we'll take these in this evening. I do want to just remind everyone that we have a lot of people who are here who have come to speak to us tonight. We have 3 agenda items on a study session, and so we need to do our best to move through these and have thoughtful, good conversation, but keep the conversation moving. So we start this evening with the Asante payment use proposal item. And this item was brought forward by Councilors Duquesne, Sherrill, and Dale. And so I will turn it over to them to open up the conversation.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this was just a quick, not a quick, but a very important agenda item that's gained obviously a lot of community interest. There's a lot of emotion and thought in this, and we want to be very mindful of how we proceed. So this was something that we wanted to hear from the community, hear from the interested parties, which is all of us at the end of the day, and look forward to a presentation and see if we can figure out how to, what's the best way forward. So that with that, I'll turn it over to any colleagues that might want to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mayor. I would just add to that there are a lot of issues that come before us where people show up maybe once and they give really good testimony and they care and they're involved. And then as soon as that's over, they leave. And with this group, they've come back over and over and over again. And I've seen the same people give amazing testimony at different times. I've seen many of the people stay for the remainder of the meeting. This is a very involved group. None of us are getting out of this alive. Okay, we all need health care, so to not take a closer look at this would be a huge miss on our part, and it's a tough problem, and I don't know that the money we have is going to solve it, but I sure hope you guys can.
Councilor Duquesne, did you want to add anything to that opening?
No, I just ditto what my colleagues have said, and once again, I appreciate our community so much. So I say let's get on with it.
Okay. So I want to put some structure around it. We have 3 organizations who have at least 3 who are working on some kind of a proposal or a solution that could potentially involve some amount of this funding that we've received in the purpose or furthering the purpose of healthcare in Ashland. So we have a couple of people. We have one group that we have 2 organizations who have signed up to present this evening and speak to us. And then we have a number of people who have signed up also to speak separately. So what we're going to do is move through those processes first, and then the council also needs to have a discussion about the $4 million. You have in your packet information about our existing financial policies, and so we, after we hear from the people who've come to talk to us this evening, we will need to take up that question about the relationship of this particular funding source to that policy and any direction for staff that might come out of that. Okay, so the intention is not necessarily to identify among the counselors which of these three we have thoughts about. It's much more to get them all on the table, to ask questions, to understand what the conversations are that are happening in the community, because none of them at this point are ready for funding anyway. So we're going to be looking at that structure. What is the structure the council might want to go through in addressing this whole question of this funding and the need in the community that has come about because of the closure of several major hospital services. So is the presentation available, the shorter one that they're looking to do?
They didn't bring the shorter ones. We do have the one that's in the packet. That they
So we
can
do
go
have the
through.
one that's in the packet. There is a PowerPoint presentation in the packet. And so what we're doing is we're going to invite each of the groups to come up. And what we'd like is a 5-minute overview of the high level of what you're working on and what you're looking to address. There has been a lot of conversation about the need for healthcare services, about why the hospital is so important to this community. I don't think that needs to be relitigated here. I think what we're looking for is what direction is your particular solution heading in, and where do you see it going? So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the organization that has the PowerPoint, the SOACH. So we will start with your presentation. If you can come into the front here. You'll speak to us from the microphone, and then we will follow up with President Rick Bailey from SOU, and then Alan Sandler has also a presentation from his group. And so, sir, if you can push that button on the microphone in front of you, it'll turn red, and that's how you know it's on. There's a silver button right in the front.
Okay.
There you go. And then pull it in nice and close to you so we can hear you.
Okay, I apologize. I had a really abbreviated presentation, but I'll make this as clear as I can. This presentation is more like an ethnography taken from the points of view of people who've lived through the different iterations of Ashland Community College, or Community Hospital. And so the essential part is that the hospital itself has helped to encourage civic pride and a unique Ashland identity. Whoops. I'll go through this quickly.
Yes, and we've all had a chance to look at it, and anyone watching from home, it is in the council packet, so you can take a look at it there as well.
Okay, the essential pieces is that when Jesse Winburn bought the Granite City Hospital, he remodeled it and donated it to the city of Ashland. And in 1930, the citizens of Ashland voted a charter amendment, Charter Article 17, which allowed the city of Ashland to own and maintain a city hospital. And the main point is that Ashland Community Hospital has been privately and publicly owned, and the hospital has survived fire, obsolescence, and insolvency. And in each instance, forward-looking citizens have been able to allow the hospital to survive and prosper. And one of the main points is an example of, I think, what the city council is trying to do is to bring the different groups together to come together to form a solution or a resolution as to how we can maintain the city hospital. Arthur Kreisman went to all the businesses, all the social groups, and the city voted a bond measure and created a city fund to build and maintain the new hospital at Maple Street, and which opened on November 4th, 1961. And so the city created city funds, and those city funds existed from 1961 until 2017. In 1996, Ashland Community Hospital became a not-for-profit corporation. And the hospital services expanded, and surgeons began to flock actually to Ashland. And in 1987, the hospital was doing 60 surgeries a month. By 2005, they were doing 300 a month. The city expanded the hospital, and it grew, and they intended it to grow. And in 2006, a 40,000 square foot diagnostic and surgery center was added. And this is just an example of what it was trying to do, trying to grow the hospital.
So, sir, you only have about 2 minutes left, and so I'm wondering if we might move on to the structure of the plan that your group is working on.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the notion was that the partnership with Asante was purposely developed so that the hospital could grow and expand. We're entering a healthcare desert. There's the collapse of rural healthcare is happening throughout Oregon. And the essence of the plan is rebuilding to protect the 4 million, planned deliberately, form a health district, and to restore general hospital services. And that it's within the capacity of the city council to create a healthcare fund with the $4 million. And the $4 million in our vision is not a windfall. It's a promise to the next generation of people in Ashland. And the main thing that's going to make this thing grow is that everyone in Ashland is a stakeholder in the development of this hospital. And we firmly stand for the idea that we're going to go against the grain, and we're going to maintain rural health care. And the idea of the healthcare district is throughout the state of Oregon, and there are many examples on which to build. But it's going to require a coalition built of the same groups that Arthur Kreisman saved the hospital originally in 1961, and it's going to require that same kind of collective action.
Thank you. So do we have questions? And sir, did you have anyone else from your organization that you want to take some questions? We're just going to allow some questions from the council.
Yeah.
Okay, so questions? Councilor Bloom?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation, the information. So it sounds like, one of the main takeaways here, at least how to move forward, is conversations about a healthcare district. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the takeaway here, so one of the solutions that it seems like you're centering on, or your organization is centering on, is the creation of a healthcare district.
Yes.
Would that district be just Ashland, or would this be a county-wide district?
At this point, it would be Ashland.
Okay. So follow up there, because this is, I want to understand this properly and see how this actually pencils. So doing just some math to try and see what is available because of Measure 5 and 50 and compression, I'm trying to understand what is the goal in terms of funding. Are you looking for $5 million a year, $10 million a year? What is an operating number you're looking at? Because then that helps understand what a tax rate increase would be, and if then we would face compression, which would then affect the city's general fund. So I'm just trying to get a sense of how much money are you hoping to raise through a district, an Ashland-based district?
Go ahead and turn on that other microphone by pushing that silver button in the front and pulling it towards you.
Okay. So at this point, what we know from meeting with the Rural Hospital Organization, OHA, a variety of things, is that modern hospitals change with technology, and what we need today will not be necessarily what we needed in 1960 or 1907. And many hospitals are downsizing. A lot of them were built during the Hill-Burton time, and they actually need work. So what we would need to start with is to really survey the community and look to see how we interface with the other health services in the area. We know Asante is downsizing their services all the time, and there is kind of a sense of free fall going on right now in healthcare in general. I know that there's a projected $421 million hole in the budget for 26 to 28. So there's a lot of questions we can't answer yet, but we have been meeting for the last 8 months, a couple of times a month. We've been going and talking with a variety of groups across the state to get a sense of what makes the most sense. And we don't feel like we can give you exact numbers because it's really a difficult time to get a hold on what's possible.
Got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
So I do want to keep the conversation tight. Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you. Thank you. Quick question. So I heard you say is that this is just centered in Ashland, this hospital district. It's my experience of Ashland Community Hospital, other municipalities, surrounding municipalities, came to that hospital from Wairika to Medford to Phoenix to Talent. Were you not thinking about maybe, when you say a tax district, I think about Ashland being taxed out. Were you thinking about looking at those communities and bringing them in and seeing what that might look like?
Ashland Community Hospital is a regional hospital. And we had originally considered Wairika and Talent Business Alliance, Wairika's Chamber of Commerce, and the different groupings in those areas. At this point, though, in terms of who we actually can bring together are the people in Ashland, and to reach out to those different areas as the project actually grows and develops, because they're serviced by Ashland Community Hospital and a big beneficiary of the services that are provided by Ashland Community Hospital.
Yeah, and I would think the funding.
Yes.
Asking them for funding.
So, did you have anything else? Okay. So in terms of this evening, I saw on your presentation that you have a request that the council would set aside the full $4 million and not move it forward with its typical policies. That was what the gist of this evening is, to give you time to
Yes.
continue to develop your
Yes,
process.
yes.
Okay. That is
the
super
gist.
helpful. Any final questions before we move on? Thank you so much for coming this evening.
If I may, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt. Can I have all the speakers state their name for the record, please?
Lori Hoagland,
Fernando Gapasine.
Benji Ben Baruch. And let me just say, it's within your power and discretion to treat these as earmarked funds that come from the contract with the city that makes these $4 million as essentially penalty reparations that should have been designated to the health fund that existed when the contract was signed. It's within your power and discretion to resuscitate or reform that fund and consider these as earmarked funds, not as unbudgeted $4 million. They should be considered as earmarked.
The last thing is I just visually wanted to, we brought in our petitions. We've collected both online and in person, and we intend to continue to have conversations with the community to be in touch with what their priorities are with healthcare.
Great, thank you. I know there was a little bit of confusion coming in this evening, but Lori and Benji, are we, you had signed up to speak, but are we good?
It was part.
To make sure that you had
we would
this
have
time
to
here.
make some statements.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, we will move on now to President Rick Bailey from SOU. And thank you all for your presentation.
Okay, good afternoon. Mayor Graham, members of the council. For the record, my name is Rick Bailey. I have the great honor of serving now in my 5th year as the president of Southern Oregon University. I know we have the press here, so I'm going to say, and you can quote me on this, Julie, probably one of the dumbest things I have ever said in front of the council, and that is that I don't have an ask for you tonight. Let me start with a word of gratitude. Every good thing that has happened, every entrepreneurial thing that our university has done in my tenure has had the support of this group of people. And so I want the public to hear this. I want the people in the room to hear this. I hope you know that every good thing that we have done has your fingerprints on it. And I hope you know that we don't take that for granted, and we're really grateful. The second thing I'll say is, really, or third thing, I think what I'm doing here tonight is really something that likely isn't in competition with the other organizations that you're hearing tonight, but maybe rather complementary to what you're hearing. So SOU is embarking on what we're calling the Vitality Plan, and that is really a way to put us in a place where we can have long-term fiscal sustainability. By the way, it's not unlike what other organizations in our city are trying to do. It is the leadership of this group of people, and it's also the leadership of local state legislators. Representative Marsh comes to mind, who have challenged us as leaders within the city to see whether or not challenges that we're facing can actually help to solve the challenges that our counterparts are facing around the city. I liken it to, can we feed more than one bird with the same seed? And really, that's what we're doing here. A lot of you know that a couple of years ago, one of the things that we saw for our students was an escalating student health fee, and it was really problematic for our students. So we took a bold initiative to partner with an organization called La Clinica to actually run our Student Health and Wellness Center from our campus. That partnership, I'm proud to say, has kept the level of service. It has not left any student out, so we provide transcare, all the other things that are really important to our identity. And but that partnership was able to freeze the Student Health and Wellness Center and stop it from escalating. So it was that partnership that made that happen. As we're going through the Vitality Plan, one of the things that we have discussed is whether or not we can use our facilities on our campus in a more productive way. I don't want to speak for La Clinica tonight, but I will give credit to Brenda Johnson and her amazing team at La Clinica. They have started to think about and propose whether or not they can expand their footprint on our campus. And in addition to providing support for students, now look at whether they can also provide support to our own faculty and staff and to community members, and even expand the types of coverage that they're giving. So it's preliminary, as Mayor Graham said. We are just in early discussions, but I do think there is a future, a likely future soon, where La Clinica has a larger footprint and can start to have an outward face in terms of the support that they're providing. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Bloom.
President Bailey, thanks for being here. It's nice to see you. My question, I think this is a brilliant proposal or concept idea that's being discussed. And I'm just curious if let's say the city of Ashland were to establish a healthcare grant program, do you foresee that this is something that La Clinica or other organizations, in working with SOU could apply for? It would be okay, be appropriate to apply for?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Bloom. I think it's a great question. I think I think it's preliminary. I think it's possible. And again, I want to be careful, understanding that there's a lot of need here, and I want to be sensitive to that. I think that we are going to try and make this work independently of this funding. The funding will certainly help, but I know that we owe it to you to come up with creative solutions, and I think this is a part of it. If I may, I want to answer a question that you asked earlier, La Clinica has multiple locations throughout the Rogue Valley. So one of the reasons we went into that partnership is we have students who live in Central Point. We have students who live in Grants Pass. We have students all over the valley. And ideally, the partnership that we're building allows them not only to access care while they're on our campus, but access it anywhere that La Clinica has a location. So it's actually meeting their needs where they are, which is really exciting.
Great. Councillor Kaplan?
Thanks, Rick. President Bailey, it's great to see you here. So I am interested in the concept as well. I appreciate you coming here and letting us get a glimpse of it. I'm wondering if you could give us just a glimpse at a time frame for how it's going to be rolled out. Because we're talking about today, our discussion is about the $4 million and whether to reserve it and for how long. And you said that you're envisioning this primarily to be independent of any of those resources. But I wonder if you could just give us a sense of how long you think it'll take to develop a reasonably fully fleshed out proposal.
It's a great question, Councillor Kaplan. I'll say that the Vitality Plan, our relationship with the state, funding that they appropriated for us has given us a very specific timeline. Right. And the challenge for us is we've got to demonstrate economic viability by summer of 2027. So I would say that is non-negotiable. Like, we have to do that. Specifically to your question, we already have, from CEO to CEO, Brenda and I actually have a meeting on the books within the next 2 weeks to look at starting to put pieces together for how we're going to make this happen. I don't want to make a promise that I can't keep, but I would say that whatever partnership we are establishing likely will start to take shape within the next few months.
Councillor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, President Bailey. And this is the first I've heard of it. So very interesting. What does the hospital look like in a year or two after a transformation, and what kind of services, what kind of name is on the building?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Hanson. So I would say it's preliminary. I also I'm gonna take your question and actually expand it if I could, and that is, when we think about, and by the way, I think everyone you listen to tonight, the thing that we all agree on is, how do we find a way to solve for the healthcare desert, right? How do we create an ecosystem that really is of service more broadly? So I think that there likely will be an expansion of services. Again, I want to be careful not to make promises, and Brenda isn't here with me, but I think they are very interested in expanding those services. There was talk about maybe adding dental and some other possibilities. The other thing is, with what we're building, can we then now have a stronger partnership with Asante and Ashland Community Hospital and others in making sure that what we're not doing is going to be in direct competition with any other providers, right? But is there a way for us to complement rather than compete with, which is kind of the spirit with which I'm here? So I think the answer is still to be determined, but our intention is to make sure that whatever we are building is adding to the solution rather than creating more problems.
Okay, and a follow-up, if I may. And so would Maple Street be utilized in this plan, or is this something that's on campus?
So good question. So right now, what we're looking at is on campus. So right now, so La Clinica operates a facility that is very close to the arts complex on our campus, right near Siskiyou Boulevard. It's still early on, but we do have facilities on campus that could be location for the expansion, but I also don't want to tie our hands to that. There may be opportunities for us to locate with other areas. And by the way, that would include, not to put Joseph and Superintendent Hattrick on the spot, but can we utilize some of Ashland School District's facilities? Can we utilize Asante's hospital? Can we? I think those questions are still to be answered.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Duquesne?
So President Bailey, I like your vision. So something that Councillor Kaplan asked about is about when do you see this being happening? And you said summer of 2027. So would you be completely done forward-facing summer of 2027, or are you beginning breaking ground summer of 2027?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Duquesne. It's a good question. I would say that the pieces of it and our design for it would be well before summer 2027. And depending on, let's say, to the answer to Councilor Hanson's question, if there is a determination that, hey, you know what La Clinica really needs is to continue to expand on our campus, if it's just about that, then it's really ascertaining, okay, what are the facilities that we have on campus that might be useful for that? And then what are the renovations that would have to be done in order to kind of get those things up to the level where they can start to provide that kind of service? I'm not a facilities expert, so I can't give you the exact. I will say that there is enough of an urgency to doing the work that we're going to try to find ways to open the doors on something as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and go ahead, Councilor Sherrill.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Rick. Awesome idea. I love that. When you were talking about this and I was looking through the packet, I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else either, but La Clinica seems like the most prepared organization to potentially take over part of that hospital wherever it's at. So I like that. When it comes to expanding their footprint on your campus, I know they've done a good job at embedding in local organizations like Aura with you guys already. The hard question is, like, how does that help the university financially? I see the value it provides to the students, potentially to staff, potentially, hopefully, to community members as well. Is it just through potential healthcare grants? Is it through land lease to them? Like, how do you come to your board and say, hey, we're going to bring you X and we're going to provide the people this value? Like, what money do you make?
Yeah, it's a great question, Councilor Sherrill. Let me start with preliminary, and obviously I don't want to commit La Clinica to something that they're not ready to commit to. I will say that it was their proposal to us as we started to go down the vitality plan. So they're already thinking about how to do this. I think I would say that they've probably been thinking about it for a couple of years now since we started the partnership. And in the way you asked the question, all of those things are a yes. So there is a potential that not only is it helping our own, in addition to our students, our own faculty and staff, if we provide a community face and now and the location is on campus and we have opportunities for more and more community members to be on campus, that's good for us, that's good for our students, that's good for everyone. And there's likely a revenue generation that will come from it too in terms of lease deals and some other things. So one of the challenges that we've had, and by the way, the city has challenged us too, is are there ways in which when I first presented to this group almost 5 years ago, one of my promises to you was we have got to stop, as an institution, stop relying solely on state funding and tuition as our only sources of revenue. We have to be more entrepreneurial. So putting my cards on the table, I think the university is very interested in a partnership with La Clinica. I think an expanded partnership. I think we're very interested, and not to give anything away, but we're very interested in a possible partnership with the city to look at how we might be able to partner with the city in some of your location needs. I think all of those things are on the table. And by the way, let me just shamelessly plug that if there is any other organization in the Rogue Valley that is interested in a partnership and they haven't talked to me, I want them to talk to me.
Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Bailey. So this is probably very premature, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there any consideration relative to the Vitality Plan, if we pursue this, that it would tie into any of the academic programs as well?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question, Councilor Dale. So part of the Vitality Plan, and I think it's one of the things that it hinges upon, by the way, shameless plug, the Chronicle for Higher Education, which is one of the, if not the most prolific national trade paper for colleges and universities in the country. One of their cover stories this week was about SOU. And what they did is they said, hey, here's a school that has gone through some really painful cuts over the years, right? You all have been with me as we've endured those. But what the Vitality Plan has said is, okay, look, you know what, we have downsized, so make sure that we are living closer to within our means. But to really transform, we have to fundamentally do it differently. And by the way, it will be the schools who commit to transformation that are going to have the best long-term chances of success. So to your question specifically, one of the things that the Vitality Plan hinges upon is giving every student some type of experiential learning as part of their pathway in every discipline. right? Doesn't matter whether it's theater or economics or whatever it is, that there are community partners where students are doing real world experience. A lot of you read the story about the wildlife overpass over I-5. It's our faculty who are working to make that happen. It's our students that did the migration patterns for the wildlife that led to the project, right? So, and think about what that does for their resume, their experience, their connectivity, their options for employment after graduation. Your question is the perfect question. We should do every partnership that we have, and you can hold me to this, if we are not tying that into a way that gives students the real world experience and so that the Rogue Valley becomes their classroom, then we're not doing it right. So we're going to commit to that.
I think that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, President Bailey. We have one more group, but I think he maybe just headed out, so I'm not quite sure whether that's happening.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the two other people who have signed up to speak to us this evening. We're going to go ahead and hear from you now. You'll each have 2 minutes at the podium. You'll have it at the 20-second mark. You'll hear the first chime, and you'll see your light change from green to yellow. When your time is up, it will go to red. You'll hear a second chime, and we ask that you complete your sentence and be finished with your testimony at that point. We have John Sestrick and Suzanne Haveman. So if you can start up at the microphone, that would be great. Please say your name and the city in which you reside to get started. Oh, it's Joanne Sestrick. Oh, and ma'am, if you can go over to that space. The testimony space is over in the corner. There's a poem. Yeah, I know that's a little bit confusing. Hold up just a moment. The mic isn't, I'm not hearing the mic pick up.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There we go, now we're good. Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Joanne Sestrick. I'm part of SCOSH for the hospital. And what I'd like to point out is the $4 million is valuable from this standpoint. If it is put in a fund and saved, we need a health district. The health district, if this had been set in place, there would have been more community input about what happened to the hospital, what's happening. It would have a board that's oversight, and it would allow, that money may allow the planning process for a health district that is very necessary to come up with what needs are here and how best to collaborate to get them met. What am I looking at for my time? Oh, my green.
You still have 1 minute and 15 seconds. Go
Okay,
ahead.
wow. I'll tell you what, I will give, and so I would like to see that $4 million invested to save and give a lead time of 3 years so that they can form a plan that gives the community and outlying communities more impact on what we do in the future for healthcare. And Ashland has been known for quality healthcare and having quality hospital. And I will cede my minutes to the next speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. We still have 2 minutes for the next person.
Hello, everyone. I want to say first, thank you very much for the work that you do. And thank you for taking this very seriously. I am Suzanne Haveman. I've worked 33 years at Ashland Community Hospital. I was there when we were a small hospital, and we built it to be a great hospital. And it was the intention, the hard work, and the commitment that this hospital could do this, and we did it with the Medford physicians coming. When I heard of this, what Asante was going to do in December, I was upset because I know what we did for the community of Ashland. And so I'm going to just be bold and say what came to mind. I hope it doesn't interfere with anybody else's thoughts or plans. But in December, I wrote 3 letters to OHSU and telling them of a golden opportunity that I believe that at that time, SOU was also showing signs of struggling, cutting curriculum. We were closing our doors. I said, I think we have a golden opportunity here. You already have a place at SOU with a nursing program and an advanced nursing program. We also see OHSU physicians down here filling in for the gaps that we don't have, neonatologists, pulmonologists, and so on. Why not consider marrying these two crises and fixing them both with a medical school from OHSU Medical School, so you'd have OHSU North, OHSU South, a medical school which would extend healthcare curriculum. We would make it for primary care physicians, which we need to build for our base, and then that would justify developing a hospital. And now it's going to be a need for a new hospital, not the existing one. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our final presentation on group activity is coming from Alan Sandler. Alan, if you'll come up here, you'll have your 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions, and then we will keep the conversation. We'll bring it back to the council for the discussion of the $4 million amount. Okay. If you can turn on that microphone again, it's the little silver button in the front. Okay, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Anyway, I'm Alan Sandler, a citizen of Ashland since 1981.
Alan, can you pull that microphone in closer?
Sure.
There you go.
I know
Thank
I'm
you.
short. Anyway, I'm Alan Sandler, a citizen of Ashland since 1981. I'm a true lover of Ashland, of what Ashland offers its citizens, and I have been very involved in the city from the first week I came to Ashland from Los Angeles. Relating to the creation of an Ashland, Oregon healthcare district through developing a rural health transformation program for Ashland. Now, you made a comment that this could be expanded not just for Ashland, it could be 2 or 3 other cities that are within this area could be working out. I have circulated a document to all of you of what the state of Maine through Senator Susan Collins accomplished. Now, getting into what I believe we should be concentrating on doing relating to developing a rural health care program. I usually take these things on from the beginning, and I don't talk about the end before we get the beginning started. That's my business concept. Anyway, we have spent too much time relating to the money received from Asante. We don't need that money right now, and we don't want to use it. And I only think the city should put up the $200,000 that is allowed to put up, available for the health care in a separate account for the city that is making interest for the city for at least 2.5 years. I think we need 2.5 years to bring this about. The city should not give or use any of this $200,000 during the 2.5-year period, other than if the question is if the city works with a group put together by Dr. John Maurer, MD, relating to the health care in Ashland. It is needed for the city to be involved. I don't think this can happen without the city being involved in it, or leading the effort in order to go to Oregon senators, legislators, as well as the federal government that has the money already allocated from bills for this kind of thing. By the way, Maine got $190 million for health care in rural districts. I have distributed how Susan Collins, Senator of Maine, received the rural health care program in Maine. And I believe that during the process of finding out what we're really doing, which I don't think any of us know, we are doing a lot of talking, but we haven't started from the beginning to find out exactly how we're going to handle all this. We will need to create a plan as to how we move forward for this healthcare project with the involvement of the city. One item I would want to include in the effort is that we would need a guarantee that the city does not change things because of political or pressure from the various political positions, from liberal or conservative positions, made to put pressure on the city. I only state this because of how the city handled things relating to adding things to the signed contract made for the sale of the Clay Street property. just a few days before the escrow was going to close. Number 5, relating to a mailing from Asante. I don't know if you've all got it or not. I gave the lady here a copy of what they sent out to the citizens. And from that, Ashland, which I'm going to give the recorder to make available, which I did already, it seems as though Ashland will not be changing things as they are now being handled at the Asante Ashland's Community Hospital. So that what they're doing, they're planning on leaving. They're not doing enough, but they're doing a lot. Thank you for allowing me this exchange for a very important decision of the city of Ashland. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I'll tell you, the one thing I'm hearing, and I like what everybody's doing, everybody's really interested, but in any program that you start, you've got to start from the beginning. And I don't think we have enough knowledge yet. I know that John Muir sent to the city attorney asking how best to do this, and I'm sure you're all getting a copy of that. I hope you are, because it was brilliant. And it's more than we really think. And no, we just have to sit down. Hopefully the city will say, okay, look, let's get involved. Let's see where it goes. We'd like to put this, just the 200,000. I don't even think you need the 200,000, but the 200,000 in an account that, you know, pays interest and so forth, and use it only for this during a 2.5-year period. It looks like 2.5 years it can be handled and it could be done. But we don't know, really. I can't tell you, and I'm pretty smart in business, I can't tell you how this is going to function until we all can sit down and, rather than having these kind of meetings, which is wonderful, it has to start this way, sitting down and just throwing the thing around is exactly how we're going to do it. I don't know how, I don't hear anybody saying, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. And it needs to be really thought out, and as a partnership with the city. That's all I have to say. If any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Alan. Good to see you. So,
Good to see you.
Thank you. A quick question.
Been flying lately?
Yesterday. The question I have surrounds the concept of kind of what I would guess, for lack of a better term, kind of call a working group, or whatever that seed group is, to be able to put things together. So I'm a little hesitant that the city would take the lead in that. I'm very interested in the city being a partner in it, of course. So I think it's going to be the folks that are the subject matter experts and have the institutional knowledge, but also have the ability to look forward and adapt and so forth. So just roughly speaking, what would you think the cadence would be as far as meeting when we would get together? Would it be every 6 months? Would it be every 3 months? What do you think, in your experience, would be a reasonable interval and timeline for the initial part of this group getting together to formulate ideas?
Okay, in the beginning, I think it needs to be pretty controlled. I mean, maybe once a week for maybe 3 or 4 weeks to get the nuts of it together. The city doesn't have to do a lot of work on it. It's what I'm saying is, in order to go to the senators in Oregon and the councilman, the legal people, and in Washington, we would need to have not just a group that we're sitting here saying, here's what we want to do. And I don't know, we need to at least say that the city of Ashland is heading this, but they're not really doing the work. I mean, you're getting all these people for nothing. People that are very, very intelligent. I'm sorry that John Moore isn't here tonight, but he really is brilliant in what's going on. He knows more about this than anybody I've ever known. I'm only good for working from the standpoint of thinking of as a business deal. Okay, it's silly to say that, but the function is the same. You have to get down together with people, sit around a thing, and beat it up. Probably we could do it in about, I would say, in about 5 or 6 sessions, we could come up with a plan. Nobody has a plan yet. We don't have a plan that we can move with. And it isn't the money that's the important part. It's what are we going to do? And once we know how we're doing it, then we can go, and the money's easy to get. $2 million isn't that much money to speak of for something like this, and it would just be a drop in the bucket. And I don't see where we would even spend it right now, because none of the people I'm working with want to get paid. I mean, are going to say, oh, I need this on them. Even if we had to go to Washington or Portland or Salem, wherever it is, to meet with these people. We do it on our own money. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions? Councilor Chevelle?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Alan, for that. And I appreciate you bringing forward the reality that it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be instant, and that it's going to take some work. A question maybe more for the city manager about the funds, and I dug into it, and it took me a while to understand it. Can you maybe briefly just touch on the $4 million? I've heard tonight that it's contractually obligated, or we have the obligation to earmark it, or the authority as a council. I've heard that our financial policies say that we need to put an X% here and X% there. We've got people asking for a lot smaller portion of the money. Can you talk to that, please?
So it would be council's decision, but our current financial policies state that this would kind of fall under the prerogative of a windfall, so amount of money that we've come into that we weren't expecting. And so per those policies, 20% would go to reserve, 10% for long-term liabilities, and no less than 20 to capital.
So that would leave, under that financial policy system, there would be 50% that's unaccounted for if we use the process of windfall.
Correct.
Okay, and this council also has the authority to delegate the money to another set fund or earmark it in an interest-bearing account?
Yeah, so you can follow your financial policies, and that's what staff would recommend, or you can look to alter those financial policies and deal with the money that way.
Thank you.
Great. So if there are no additional questions, thank you, Mr. Sandler. And we're going to pick up the conversation, and we are just want to give everyone a time check. We are about an hour in. We do want to have the conversation, though, about if there is any specific direction that we want to give to staff this evening. We are not going to have a deep discussion of the three ideas that have been brought forward right now. What we're talking about is there a direction to staff about the funding? Holding it for some amount of time around whether it is or isn't answerable to the financial policies. That's where this conversation needs to go this evening. I do want to start it out, though, by being clear. There is some conversation out in the community that says that Asante has had to pay a penalty. They have not had to pay a penalty. This is a clause in their contract that they chose to exercise. And so we need to understand it in that way. And so just setting the baseline information so that we all have the same understanding going into it. So let's open up that conversation about what are we thinking? People have come here tonight asking us for a variety of different things. Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll be very brief. I appreciate what everybody has said. My initial feelings are as follows. I don't see this as an either or. I don't see it as an either of 4 million or we follow financial policies. I think it's both. I personally think that we need to follow financial policies. I think that that's a slippery slope as we debate up here and as we discuss that which policies do we follow, which ones do we bend, which ones do we rewrite because of certain things. I do think that following the policy even to the letter accomplishes the same end goal that we're trying to do as partners in this together trying to solve this, whether it's reserve and capital and infrastructure to be able to free up other funds and decision-making processes that allow us to be able to contribute more in different ways. As far as the other 2 million, I am certainly open to ideas, but I just wanted to put that out to set the table.
Councilor Bloom?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll kind of high level first on this topic and kind of the situation we're dealing with healthcare is me personally, I believe that healthcare is a fundamental human right. And we all should have access to that, every single human being. The reality, though, is the cost, the expense, and the scale. Every single developed country on this planet deals with it at a national level because that's the scale of which it can be affordable. It can be accessed. A city, a municipality of 21,000 absolutely can't do it. I was looking into some other countries that have kind of played with this. Finland is one of them, and they ended that program because it's just not sustainable. looking at what it would take, I mean, you're looking at regions of 200,000+ people. So potentially Jackson County could maybe participate in a district or do something like that. But we're looking at, just based on the Jackson County Assessor's report, 57 cents per 1,000 assessed value only gets you about 15 million annual operating subsidy. That is not enough to operate a hospital, right? So we need to be writing our congressmen, we need to be writing our legislature, and we need to be saying that they need to step up the game, because our rural communities, our municipalities can't do it. Further, I have questions about some of these programs. I looked into the rural healthcare transformation program, and there's a clear stipulation that if there is a hospital within 30 miles of a community, that funding is not accessible. So we run into that problem when it comes into funding as well. So the question is, what is the highest and best use of this $4 million? And I think fundamentally, aside from the $2 million that might be left over after policies, fundamentally, I believe that we need to follow our financial policies. We haven't at times in the past, and we need to break that, and we need to be consistent. These are the policies that are in place, and we need to follow them. If we don't like the policy, then we need to change the policy first, instead of just on a whim, tit for tat, when we feel like it, just not doing it. That is not good governance. That's what leads to financial distress and chaos within our community. So for me, first and foremost, having the conversation about, do we follow the policy or not? Yes. And then a follow-up about the remaining 2 million. I'm interested in having that conversation as well.
Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And thanks to everyone who came to talk with us. I appreciate many of the things that people said this evening, particularly that we're not talking about a need for resources right now. We have to figure out, well, what is it going to cost? What is it that's feasible to do? I don't think this is a decision we have to take right now. So for me, I am absolutely interested in reserving resources for a later time when something's fleshed out. We know how we're going to use this money, or if we're going to need to use it, maybe we won't need it at all, and then we'll have a different kind of discussion, or a future council will have that discussion. I don't know. I mean, I agree in following policies, but I disagree with this characterization as a windfall. This is something that was stipulated in a contract and flows because of the proceeds because of the language in that contract. So it is no more a windfall than anything else that's specified in a contract. So I think that we have the flexibility to reserve the full amount, the $4 million, for some period of time until some future date that the council decides what to do with it. At that time, if we decide that we don't need to use it for a healthcare purpose, then it would be a windfall to our general fund, I suppose, and those policies would apply. But I wouldn't want to prematurely apply the financial policies that I think don't really apply in this case, because it's not a windfall at all.
Councillor Duquesne.
So I want to thank everyone that came out, because there's so much information that's been put in front of us and so much opportunity. So I just want to go back to that financial policy. And I 100% agree, which was said earlier. If we start to bend policy to fit a situation, to me, we're opening up Pandora's box. Because this is my pet project, so I'm going to bend this to do this, and this is this, and so I'm going to bend it to do this. Policies are put in place for a reason. So I would like to adhere, and I support the financial policy. I do believe that we should definitely set aside X amount of dollars for health care, because we are in a desert when it comes to health care. Health care is a human right. And right now, something that was said earlier, start from the beginning, we all want to hit that same goal. What it looks like right now, tonight, I don't know, and I don't think we all know. So I am in favor of holding on to that 50%, or holding on to an amount of it and setting it aside. However, I don't know what that's going to look like. And I do want to adhere to the policy, financial policy. I don't want to open up Pandora's box. So that's where I am. Thank you.
Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, I have a lot of gratitude to everybody that came to speak tonight. I mean, this is found money as far as our budget is concerned, and we have institutional crisis happening at the community hospital, and we have other institutional crisis happening in our community, SOUs and transformation, and we have an opportunity to use this money to do something good. When we can find an opportunity and disperse it through grassroots, we have entrepreneur grants that help bring in, events and programs. We have childcare that is lifted up. The city does really well at using money to help spur and grow seeds. So given that we don't have any urgency for this, I think that we should wait. We should be thoughtful. We should see what groups come forward. We should see what kind of partnerships happen. The actual facility itself is of great concern to me. It has incredible resource within it. I don't want to see it shuttered. There's a lot of people that have moved to this community because it has a hospital, and that's very important. And I would love to see the entrepreneurs and the state agencies and the federal agencies and the other organizations that can come together to do something about formulating a good solid plan, and then the city will have the ability to boost with our resources, with our money. Because if we just follow the windfall policy and shuffle off 50%, I think that's prudent fine management. But I don't think we're in a crisis where the city needs that money right now. And so let's sit on it. Let's let these plans gestate and bubble and see what we can do. And also let's see what Asante. I think Asante is not done making their moves. They're cutting people, 300 people at a time quarterly. We're not done yet. Buckle up. So thank you for all of your hard work. Let's just keep working the plan, and let's keep, supporting and loving each other and getting to the end goal. And remember that there's a lot of people in this community that want this and want to see some sort of resemblance of what we had. So, maybe it looks different in a different part of town, different building. I don't know yet, but it's something that we will figure out, I believe.
Councillor, just for as a clarification, are you suggesting that the council sets the whole $4 million aside?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear. I wanted to not mischaracterize that. Councillor Chevelle?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody that came out today in support of this, these different ideas, and I think they're all good. For my position, I don't know yet. I don't know enough to not even know what I don't know. I would think that we have plenty of time to set aside the $4 million and get a really good legal interpretation of what a windfall is. I know when we look at other funds like selling property from, for example, for a wastewater fund, that those proceeds go back into that fund. Is that with interest? Is that with the inflated annualized equity? I'm not sure. I would like legal to take a really good look at not bending the policy, but if there's ever a time to ask really hard questions of why, I think it's for an issue that affects everybody like this. And then as far as some of the ideas that I heard today, I thought they were all great, and I would just hope that the people in this room look across the room and meet to come up with a plan that helps the patient first, and then the community, and then our institutions, and come up with some kind of plan where everybody's going to win, including the people that have a handout for some of these funds. But I don't see them as a windfall either, but that I think is way out of my pay grade and would need to be interpreted by legal. So I would hope that we can ask staff for a legal formal interpretation of what a windfall is, and if we have the ability to set aside 50% or if we can set aside the full 100%.
Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you. I just kind of wanted to address just this idea of windfall. So, sure, we can get an interpretation, but it's not budgeted, it was not expected. But regardless of that, the question still stands about not necessarily what is the policy, but what is the policy trying to achieve, right? And we've had conversations around here about how we need to build up our reserve fund, how it has been depleted, how we need to fund our facilities fund so that we can repair City Hall, we can repair a lot of deferred maintenance in the city that serves the community as well. We have long-term liabilities that need to be addressed, and this policy helps achieve that. And there can still be money left over. I mentioned earlier this idea of potential grant program through Housing and Human Services, where money can immediately be accessible to community members or organizations that have ideas. You have an idea, you can come. You don't have to wait 3 years to then come with an idea and get some money. We can start getting money out in the community for healthcare right now, and we can address our reserve fund, our deferred maintenance, and our long-term liability. So I think that we need to look at this a little bit broader than just definitions and policy, but what is it that we're trying to achieve as a council? And I think that I would hope that what we're trying to achieve is to address many different complexities and issues that the city is facing, and this seems like a really ripe opportunity to be able to kind of hit 3-4 things all at once. So that's something that I would hope you would all consider.
So there's a number of thoughts that are with me this evening. One of them is that there is a relationship between this money and healthcare. We wouldn't have it if there wasn't a relationship between it and healthcare. And so I have to think that the people who put this clause into this contract understood that if the hospital ever closed enough services so that it didn't meet the definition of a hospital, that there would be the need to cede something to address the healthcare gap that was created by that. That it wasn't just, well, if they're out before a certain amount of time, then we're going to, have money to rebuild our buildings with, or to do whatever else is our structure. Whether that was what they were thinking or not, it's not directed specifically to healthcare, but I have to, in my mind, there is a direct connection to it. It is absolutely true that this organization, our city, we could spend this, and I've told people, everybody in this town has spent that money 3 different ways, right? All the different things that we would spend it. There is no shortage of things that we could invest it in, but I think the importance is that it needs to be an investment. And my concern would be that if we split it now before we have actually heard the full breadth of the proposals, that we might be in a circumstance where we are essentially splitting the baby, right? You don't have enough left in the pot to do the investment that's needed. But you still have some, so maybe we kind of limp into something. What I've heard this evening are at least 3 ideas that have not germinated yet, so we don't actually know what they need. There's every possibility that down the road, as these things develop, we might find out that it is only $2 million that's needed, or it's nothing, or it's all 4. Or whatever that might be. But my hope is that at some point, this council is looking at proposals from the groups that are working on these issues, and we will figure out what is the best way to invest some or all of this. But we only get to have that conversation if we hold all of it for now, and not forever. And I would suspect that at the end of, I might even call it at 2 years, at the end of 2 years, if we don't see enough traction in any of these ideas that we feel are good investments, we might put the whole thing back into the city and use all of it, not just the half, but the whole thing. So I don't want us to put little bits of it out and sprinkle it around. I want us to decide whether we're going to back something that is transformational in this community on the healthcare side, or whether we are going to invest it in our own facilities. And what I hear from the circle here is that we don't have an answer yet. We are split exactly half and half. And so I think we need additional conversation. We're going to need to bring this back. And I just a confirmation, Sabrina, from you. People are asking the question of, well, might some of that be spent? And I keep saying no. It's not budgeted. Nothing can happen without an appropriation. But in terms of that 50% that would typically be designated into other places, can you just speak to the council and the community about what is the risk of this money moving before we have further discussion?
So we would look to recognize that revenue and place it where it needs to go, or where you all want it to go during the next budget cycle.
During the next budget cycle. So the community can expect that we have several months and that there isn't going to be any of that spent for quite some period of time. So we could have another conversation at a study session to keep going down this road. Is that correct?
That's correct. It will just sit in our account.
It just sit in the account. Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you for that question. I think we should let our community members know what is several months. What does that mean? Is it how, so that if I am there and I am part of this group, this would incentivize me to hurry up and see how we can have a clearer plan. So if it's going to sit there until our next budget cycle, that would be.
Go ahead.
So staff would prefer that we follow the financial policy and invest it in the funds per the financial policy. If council needs time to discuss and determine what they're going to do, the funds will just sit there until we get direction from the body. So it's the timeline of the council.
So it's not the next budget.
Well, it will be if you don't do anything before then.
And that is.
So we will start doing the budget in October.
Councillor Hanson.
Thank you. Yeah, if it's cautionary, if it's a vote, if for whatever reason, if we maintain the 4 million, I know Brendan isn't here for this, but is there an interest-bearing account that we can put it in month to month, or like short range to the end of September at least, so we can be doing something, a little bit of some growth with that money?
I have to confirm with finance where they put it and ask.
Okay.
But September is right now, essentially, in
Yeah.
our world. So if we want to place it in an interest-bearing account, we would just put it in our investment pool.
Right. Okay. I don't know how we follow up on that, but that would, if we're going to hold on to it, we should at least have it working for itself.
Yep. Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, thanks. And I suppose this is, more of a question for Bryn, so maybe you can get back to us. When I heard you say that this is just in our account, I think the way it probably shows up is in our general fund. I'd like it to be restricted in the general fund. It's obviously not been appropriated, so it can't be appropriated. I don't want it to be used as part of the fiscal in the proposal as you develop the 2027-2029 budget proposal starting in October, and that the budget committee and the council consider next spring. I think this needs to be protected from use there as well, except for as part of a health use, as we've discussed, or failing the need for that, allocation between reserves and facilities and capital. Is that what you mean?
So unless we get council direction, we will follow the current adopted financial policies of the council, and that is how we will proceed with the funds during our next budget cycle. So we will need direction from the body on how they would like to proceed.
So okay, let me just restate that to make sure that I've understood it. At this point, it's in the general fund is restricted. Once if we don't direct otherwise, you would separate it out as part of the budget proposal in accordance with your interpretation or the lawyer or city attorney's interpretation that this is windfall and then would be allocated in those ways. Is that what you mean? Got it. Thanks.
Just a moment. We are at 6:47. We don't have an answer tonight. And so what I want to do is get enough staff direction so that we could pick this conversation up a little bit later. I see you. And so what I want to propose is this. Let's identify that we need to pick this up in another study session. Any counselor who has questions of legal or any of finance or anything like that needs to ask them before we get back to this study session. But in the meantime, that we would direct the staff not to begin to plan for that money until we come back together as a council and give specific direction, either to simply carry on with the policy side, the way that it's being interpreted, or to do something different. So that's the question I want to ask people if it works. Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, thanks. Sabrina, quick question for you. Was this $4 million in our budget? Was it budgeted?
No.
So to be clear, the financial policy doesn't refer to a windfall. It says if the city should receive unbudgeted revenues, net of
Counselor-
corresponding or related
Counselor?
expenditures or proceeds.
I appreciate that, but we are to another conversation. The conversation in front of us right now is whether we're not going to finish this tonight. It's pretty clear about that. So we need to be done having that conversation. We've got people here who've come to speak to us about other issues and contractors waiting. So the question that we need to ask is the council as a body willing to say to staff, for now, hold off until we have a second study session? We need to stop litigating this tonight.
I just
Councillor.
have a very quick question to Sabrina relative to that. So Sabrina, understanding that staff needs to start planning. To the mayor's point, when would you need this to come back to, or when's the latest it would be where we would have this discussion? Because clearly the discussion is going to be around modifying a resolution.
So we need to have this figured out by October of this year. So
Okay.
I would propose that you all get me any legal or financial questions you have. We'll get those sorted out and we'll bring this back for discussion when we're talking about our reserve and capital fund.
Okay. Are there any objections to that plan? No. Okay, so that's the direction for today. Thank you for everyone who has come here this evening. We are going to move on now to the SERJAC recommendation. If the SERJAC members can please come to the front and offer your presentation.
Somebody left their glasses here.
Oh, Alan, are those yours? No? Glasses?
Oh.
We'll get it sorted.
Mayor, would it be permissible to bring another chair up for the representative from Rogue Valley Meeting Watch?
Yeah, Sabrina's bringing you one there.
Thank you very
And
much.
Councillor Sherrill will bring another one, or whatever you need.
No, I want you to write this right now with us. Okay. And Brendan, I don't think you're going to get this.
Thank you. Goodness.
Okay. No, I'll just reference it. Okay. Is that okay? That's totally fine. Great, thank you. You want to sit here? No. I'll sit right here.
Okay, if everyone can identify themselves, and please make sure both of the microphones are on. And then if you're speaking into the microphone, please make sure you've pulled it towards you so everyone can hear.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. We greatly appreciate it, and we understand the time problems that the council has. So we are not going to tonight, unless there are specific questions, go over what we have already provided to you so that we can get to what I think is the meat of the matter. And the meat of the matter right now is what's happening right now, today, in the Rogue Valley that has changed the way in which there is immigration enforcement in the Rogue Valley. And towards that end, we have a representative here from Rogue Valley Migra Watch who is prepared to address the council on that issue. And then at that point, you have the proclamation, you have all the backup material that we gave you. We are more than willing to answer questions so that we can try and stay within the time frame that you have graciously allotted us.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Allison Mendel, Chair of SERJAC, and I'll just let our primary witness speak.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Maya. I'm a resident of Ashland. Between May 1st and July 31st of this year, 2026, there were at least 31 detentions in Southern Oregon confirmed through Rogue Valley Migra Watch eyewitnesses or family members of people who were detained and deported. That's on average 10 people a month through the Medford ICE office. The Deportation Data Project, which is a national organization and uses FOIA reports to estimate the number of ICE arrests and deportations around the country, estimated between 50 to 60 detentions through the Medford ICE office last year between January through November 2025. That's about 5 to 6 people per month on average, but it also includes 1 day of 17 detentions. Of the 31 people detained by ICE in the last 3 months, 7 people were released the same day through filing habeas corpus petitions, which grant access to their due process rights. These 7 people released will continue to go through the deportation process, but they'll be able to do so from home, with their family, with access to their documents. And people who are not released, but who are detained, are taken to the Northwest Detention Center in Tacoma, Washington, which has a long history of health violations, concerns of mistreatment, and deaths of people in custody. In Southern Oregon, we are uniquely positioned to help people grant their release through habeas corpus petitions, because when a habeas corpus petition is filed with a judge, ICE is not allowed to transport a detainee across state lines. Oregon does not have an overnight detention facility where ICE can hold people in custody for any amount of time. And so if a habeas corpus petition is filed before someone in Southern Oregon is driven across the Washington border, ICE is required to release them to continue their proceedings at home. So if an overnight detention facility were to be built or an existing facility repurposed as an overnight detention facility anywhere in the region, it dramatically reduces the opportunities to help people access legal support and their documents as they go through their immigration process. I've also included a link to an Ashland news article about 2 detentions and releases that happened on July 26th, in which ICE followed people from exit 14 towards Emigrant Lake. So there are detentions happening in and around Ashland. And I just wanted to make sure everyone know the information of the current ICE activity that we're aware of in our region.
I'm just going to add one point to that and then take questions. Of the 17 people, of the 31 detentions that have been in Southern Oregon, ICE has taken only 2 of those people directly to Tacoma. And as I think you're aware, Tacoma is at least a 10-hour drive away. So there is a large distinction between having an overnight facility and the facility that is currently in Medford, which is a walk across the runway to an airport where if there were an overnight facility, there is the concern as to the potential for an extension, which is what the person was speaking about, is the notion that the current existing facility, which is very small, could be expanded by only about 20 beds, and then you could get to an overnight facility, which would make it more difficult for people who were detained to get released. I also want to point out one other thing about the proclamation and why we are asking that you do this now. If you look at all of the information that we gave you in the packet that we did, you will notice that in many cases, and I would just say, look at the city of Newburgh in New York, which is about the size of Ashland. And if you look there, you will see that in February of 2026, they said, we are joining in with the entire Orange County in saying no ICE facility in this area. But one of the things that we put in there was that on July 13th, okay, that's only about 3 weeks ago, that ICE came back with a different idea for a facility, and they referenced at that point the proclamation that they had previously signed in February of 2026. Many of the proclamations and resolutions that you see from county governments are done in advance of potential litigation and are done in advance of when you actually get the word from ICE that they're indeed putting in a warehouse or any other kind of facility. And because I was so involved in this, I'm just going to talk for a minute about Coos County. Okay. We didn't know that this was coming in Coos County. And how we found out about it was because in the Newport filings, and Newport winds up in big litigation, right? In the Newport filings, there was this one little line, and it said that if we can't get this in Newport, we're moving down the coast to North Bend. Because in North Bend, there's an airport. And therefore, there's a warehouse. And then we looked around, and before we knew it, they were contacting contractors, and we don't really know, and it's very opaque who the contractors are and how to get to them. So in credit to the Coos Bay City Council and the Coos County Commissioners, they did what was available to them at that point. Unfortunately, because of the vagaries of Coos County, it's not like I have an actual document beyond the press release that they did and the tape, the YouTube of Coos County. But we were all there at those hearings, and people testified about it. And you know what? It didn't happen because they knew how the municipalities felt and they knew how the community felt. And if you look back at everything that we sent, you will see that ultimately in all of those cases, there was not an ICE facility that was put there. Okay. This has to do with increasing the numbers of people who are locked up in our community who otherwise would be able to go through the detention facility, the immigration laws in a reasonable fashion. I'm done.
Thank you, Emily, but we are to 7 o'clock, so we need an extension.
Okay,
Just a moment.
Oh, sorry.
Counselor, we need a timing extension. Counselor Kaplan?
Move to extend.
All in favor? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm done. There may be questions, or Allison may want to say something, or Maya want to say more.
I just want to back up and talk about how we got to be here, which is this issue was first raised to the city council a few months ago by community members who read this in the news and were very concerned about it and wanted to try to do something. So from there, some of those people came to the SERJAC committee, and we got in contact with Meager Watch and some other local organizations. And so there's been a lot of input from community members in Ashland, outside of Ashland. There's a lot of energy behind this. So we worked on drafting a proclamation that is about the facility, not about immigration policy per se. It's about, we don't want a facility. We have a lot of economic, social, cultural reasons why we don't want a facility, and that's all in the proclamation. And our committee is hoping that if this body adopts this proclamation, that it could serve as a model for other counties or municipalities in the area to adopt something similar.
And I do want to say also that Brendan Polcano from our committee, our newest committee member, is here tonight. And I also want to say that without him and without everybody else contributing to the research that we did, and without the months that we had of testimony on this, we would not feel comfortable coming today. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Questions? Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks to all three of you. I have a couple of questions. I guess one, just a clarifying question, I think probably to you, Emily. about, well, I guess both qualifying questions. One is about habeas corpus, and the other one is about jurisdiction. About habeas corpus, you're characterizing it as you trigger it, and as long as they can't get along state lines. But why is an overnight? How does an overnight detention center figure into it? Isn't the actual? I thought isn't the actual restriction going across state lines? That's the first thing. The second one has to do with jurisdiction.
Can I answer that
Let's
first?
answer the first one first.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The body isn't here anymore.
What's that?
The body is not here anymore for habeas corpus. So if they're across state lines, there's no habeas corpus that a local judge can do.
No, I understand that.
So
I understand that.
here's the problem. The habeas corpus has to get filed while the person's still in Oregon and at liberty. And if they could be arrested and immediately detained in an overnight facility, there would be no window for filing the habeas corpus. They would be stuck in the overnight facility for however long.
And it's an overnight facility rather than just a facility.
Right, an overnight facility. We have the airport facility. We have no overnight. So we have. I mean, it's really kind of a happenstance.
Right.
We have this time from
Okay.
when you arrest somebody at Emigrant Lake and how fast can you get them to
Yeah.
Tacoma, and in that whole time until they cross the border, you could file a habeas petition.
Okay.
One amendment, and I am not an attorney, but a habeas corpus petition can be filed for someone in Tacoma, even if they came from
Yeah,
Oregon.
okay.
It grants someone due process under the law, and so their case has to be heard, and it puts the onus of creating proof of whether this person should be
Okay.
deported on the government to produce. However, while their case is under consideration, they are not allowed to be transferred across state lines. So for most people, they're already in an overnight detention facility. It just keeps them at that facility and prevents them from being transferred to a different state facility. For Oregonians, there's like a 5 or 6 hour window from Southern Oregon
Right.
that they could then be released.
So okay, thank you. My second question has to do with jurisdiction. This is an Ashland proclamation. We're not talking about a detention center, overnight detention center in Ashland. Does it have to, do we have any authority over that, or does it have to have the county to actually have any force?
It's my view that jurisdiction really has nothing to do with this. This
Okay.
is an expression of our community's position on this issue, and our intention, hopefully, not to cooperate in any establishment of a detention facility. No, we have no jurisdiction over, what they might put at Medford Airport, but we can certainly say what we think about it.
And in fact, Counselor Kaplan, if you looked back at what we sent, you'll notice that a lot of the city ones, for example, Sparta Township, that is then in a county, Roxbury, et cetera, the cities do it individually so that they can say, this is what we think, this is what we feel. It's an expression of your belief. It is not necessarily a jurisdictional issue.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you. Honestly, you pretty much answered my questions in the conversation of it. So just to be clear, that what is in Medford by Medford's airport is not necessarily a detention. It's just a holding place until hopefully the habeas corpus and we can save people. So this is just a holding place, right?
Right.
And so when I read this, I think that it's a call to action. And I appreciate all of your work on this. So I know we are looking at time, but I appreciate you so, so much.
Any other questions? Councillor Sherrill?
Thanks, Mayor. And I would ask this to the city attorney if one of them were present, but I think you'll do. Going through a lot of these processes, and you have a lot of good data points, have you seen anybody get, has there been any federal pressure for people, as you say, this is an expression of our community and what's going on at the federal level? Have we seen any federal dollars dry up, or we're not going to fund your water treatment plant loan, or have we seen any retaliatory action that we're seeing every day from this administration to communities who have taken this stance? And please don't take that as tone deaf, I don't think we should support this. Do you have any data that is seeing some shade come from the federal government?
Go ahead.
Okay. The answer is, it depends on how you characterize litigation, to be really honest. So there has been efforts, many efforts across the country by the Immigration Service and by the current administration to force communities to do this through the litigation process, which is what we submitted in our records, in our documentation. But here in Oregon, what we've had so far, and I'm speaking directly from the Coos County experience, were not any direct threats of any kind at all, except for the publicity and the notion that either we should be doing this for jobs or for economics, and or the generalized threats of immigration, but there has not been, and there was not in Coos County, any direct threats. Now that having been said, because I'm an honest person, okay, moving the helicopter from North Bend, which was necessary for saving lives, and from Newport, some would describe that as a threat. And I'm just saying that because so many of these cases involve not just what happens with the ICE facility, but there's more that goes into it. Luckily for us, we didn't have that in Coos County because it had all been litigated by the Newport people. But other than that, and that depends on how you view it, there has not been anything else of which we're aware, of which I'm aware. Are you, Maya?
That's not my area.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Thank you so much for your honesty.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, SERJAC, and I appreciate the proclamation. I'll be supporting it, and I'm also curious where you found the content and who wrote it.
Say that again?
I'm curious where you found the content and who wrote it.
It was a group effort.
Okay.
We took what was done in Coos County and we changed it and amended it, hopefully to address these circumstances, sent it to Mayor Graham. She sent it back with some suggestions. We hoped to follow them somewhat. We did not. Some we did, some we didn't, because we wanted to reflect very much what the people, what Allison was talking about before, what the people who came and talked to us felt. So since we are the committee, we took what they felt and came back to the body and said, this is what we feel comfortable asking this body to do.
Well done.
We understand that Mayor Graham is the one who gets to change the language, or maybe this body does, I don't know, as needed. But the important part is, to us, is that Ashland take a stand on this now in the event that things go further with the feds, particularly at the Medford facility, and we have heard rumors that they are going to.
Well done. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have 5 people who have signed up to speak. If you can all stay there in case there are further questions. Each person will have 1.5 minutes, so 90 seconds. You'll come up to the podium. When you have 20 seconds left, you'll hear the first buzzer, and your light will change to yellow. When your time is up, it will turn to red, and you'll hear the second buzzer. Please feel free to line up along the wall if you're able. If you need us to bring you the microphone for mobility issues, we are happy to do that. So the order that we will take this in is Tom Doolittle, Tom Romano, Ruth Wire, Monty Walters, and Ellen Crane. So Tom Doolittle first, please.
Thank you for the opportunity. The citizens of Ashland are opposed to this detention facility or any detention facility in the Rogue Valley. Some of this is political opposition because of racism, illegal and immoral treatment of immigrants, and many because of the lack of justice. That is not my argument. My argument is Ashland needs to stay clean of political dangers that are destroying this country. Please take a stand that is fair, just, and improves freedom of all people. I strongly disagree with any detention facility here or nearby. It will bring discord to both residents and visitors. It will bring more violence, mistreatment, congestion, resentment. All aspects of the Ashland we love will be reduced. Please be very strong in your forceful statement to reject any and all support of this type. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Romano. I'm a resident of Ashland, Oregon. It doesn't matter whether I'm a member of a resistance organization or not. It doesn't matter what religious belief I have or what ethnic beliefs I have or what ethnic background I have. To me, this is not an issue of ethnicity, racial, or gender. It's an issue of human rights. I don't want to live in fear myself of arrest or detainment, but I don't want to see my neighbors be detained or taken away or arrested. That is not right. It is not morally. It is not ethically right. I want to live in a safe community of respect for my neighbors and friends. I say no to a detention facility in the Rogue Valley. No.
Thank you.
My name is Ruth Wire, and I've been here in Ashland since 1975. I love this community. I love my neighbors. My son married a Hispanic, and before they got married, his husband was asked to leave by the first Trump administration. So my son is now living in Mexico. He had to get married there, and I don't get to see him very much. I don't want Martine back here in this country with ICE detention places where I live. I am also a relative of 40 people that were killed in the Holocaust, and that started by rounding up people. And there was a saying in those days, they will come for you. It doesn't matter. Anybody who is an enemy of this state we call the United States now will eventually get in trouble. And we've got to preserve what we have now. We've got to fight back. So I am definitely not in favor of this detention center.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Monty Walters. I've lived in Southern Oregon since '91. They talked about the sanctuary laws in Oregon for 10 years before we finally got one. They put a referendum out to rescind it in 2018, and that got voted down. Clearly, the people in Oregon want sanctuary laws, and they want them enforced. How can you run a detention facility in a state with sanctuary laws that forbid public employees, government officials, from cooperating with immigration? It's impossible to run a detention facility in a state that essentially all but forbids their existence. The head of the temporary head of ICE said in March that there were no plans to actually build a detention facility in Oregon, and now we see them having designs on Coos Bay and possibly the Medford Airport. We can't let this happen, and there are people who won't let it happen, and it would be much easier if you helped us before we had to get weird.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ellen Crane. I moved to Ashland in 1980. Just a week ago, I was sitting in Lithia Park listening to the free concert, and I want to thank the City Council for enabling that to happen. A band from California talked about how happy they were to be in Ashland. They said Oregon is the softer side of the West Coast. And all the visitors who've come to stay with me over the years have said something the same thing. It's such a peaceful place here. We love it here. Well, that might change. With a detention center in Jackson County, increased ICE presence, you know that it will no longer be a peaceful place. We know that there's going to be a lot of protest. And with protests, that means more city staff, police, fire, and so forth, taking care of whatever disruptions occur. So I really think that we want to use our resources to help keep our city safe, to keep it peaceful, and to preserve the way of life that we all value. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, so what I'd like to do, did you have a question, Councillor?
No, I had a comment, so I thought we were going to comment.
We're going to go around and do that. So if you'd like to start us, that'd be great.
First. Wow, thank you so much. And one thing I love about Ashland, we always show up. So I just appreciate everyone for sharing and coming forth and saying how you feel. And when it comes time to SERJAC, you all know that you're near and dear to my heart, and I'm so proud of the work that you do and have done. I applaud you for taking a look at all sides of it, sitting there at the table and seeing your work and everyone's participation with your direction, Allison, and all of your resilience and steadfastness, Emily and Brandon, and everybody who's brought this together. I appreciate this so, so much, and I cannot say how touched I am that you see us, people that are marginalized, and you don't leave us in the margin. So I appreciate all of your work so, so much. And I don't know if you can tell, but I definitely support this. Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, I don't have anything really to add to that, Gina. Thank you. Yeah, I totally support this. Thank you.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to support. Just many thanks to SERJAC for bringing this to us, and to the Meeker Watch, which is doing really important work. And I very much appreciate all the professionalism that you've brought to this. I support this strongly.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, SERJAC. And thank you, Gina.
Councillor Bloom.
Yes, thank you for this. As most of you all know, my wife is an immigrant and has a green card, and so this is dear to my heart. I would like to say more, but I try to avoid profanities at the dais. So thank you.
Councillor Sherrill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Thanks.
So a couple of things. If we know world history, we know what we're looking at. And there, unfortunately, people who move in this way count on people being quiet, thinking that they are creating safety for themselves and their family. They are not. And we should make sure that we don't fall into the trap of imagining that there is a safe path at this point in what we're looking at. That being quiet keeps us safe, keeps our community safe, protects our grant funding. What I know is when I took this office, I made a commitment. I took an oath to defend the Constitution. I did not take an oath to defend grant money. And there are times when we are called on to stand behind the principles of this nation, and we are in that time. I am so grateful for the work that you all are doing to bring us the opportunity to do this. Typically, proclamations begin at my desk. Whatever this council moves forward with, I will happily put my name to without edit. So it appears that we have full consensus. We don't vote during study sessions in this way. So what we will do is I have taken the full support, unanimous support of this council, and this proclamation will be issued forthwith. Thank you. Okay. Well, we are moving on now to the third item on our agenda, which is the Strategic Plan Engagement Results and Framework. And I understand, Sabrina, that we have our contractors on board with us, so please set us up for this next conversation.
All right, so this is one of the check-ins with SSW. So Sarah Wilson is here with us tonight. They wanted to give you an update on how our engagement went with the strategic plan and what our next steps are. And so, Sarah, I'm going to go ahead and hand it on over to you.
Hold on just a second. Sarah, can you hold on just a moment? If everyone can please keep it quiet as you're heading out of the room. Thank you. Hold on just a moment. Go ahead, Councilor Bloom.
I'm sorry, I have to leave at 7:30, and I didn't see anything in the packet, but I was just hoping that maybe that could be emailed out to all of us so that I could review what's happening. I mean, I can watch back later, but that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
All right, give me just a moment while I pull your presentation up and get the share. Okay. Let me try it again here. There we go. All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. We are up and running. Okay, well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share an update with you on our strategic planning process. A couple things that we want to cover tonight in the presentation are just to first reconnect you quickly to the project goals and the timeline. You've seen this content before, so we'll keep that brief. And then get into a summary of the engagement results that have been underway, the engagement that's been underway for the last several months. We want to talk to you about the themes that have emerged from that. Since the engagement has completed, we also use those themes to have some action lab discussions and begin to zero in on potential goal areas, outcomes for those goals, and begin the discussion of formulating actions for the strategic plan. And so we'll review a summary of those action labs and share with you tonight the draft goal areas, the outcomes, and a draft mission, vision, and values based on the engagement thus far. And then wrap up talking about some of the next steps and what you can expect coming up in this process.
And as we go through, do you want us to ask questions as we go through, or will you stop at certain points that make sense to ask questions?
Yes, I will pause. I will pause as I move through the engagement results and through as after each goal area when I present that, and see if there's any feedback on the particular goal area and outcome and the results of that engagement. And then also at the draft mission, vision, and values, I'm hoping to just gauge the council's reaction to that. And just to let you all know ahead of time, we will have an opportunity. We have a workshop coming up in September where we'll have more time to go a little deeper on the goal areas and the actions that will support those. So just know that deep conversation is coming, because I know you guys are trying to maybe potentially make up some time in tonight's meeting.
And are you looking for feedback from the entire council, or is individual councilor feedback? To what extent is that helpful in your process?
I think high level feedback at this point on the mission, vision, and values would be helpful, and just kind of, is it resonating? Is it not resonating? And again, this is still in a draft format, and we'll be able to go more in depth at that September workshop.
Okay, so you'd like council-wide speaking as one voice?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. So just to reorient to our project goals, we're creating Ashland's first long-range strategic plan. And one of the goals in this project was to do a robust community and staff engagement. So you'll see the results of that this evening. We want to make sure we've got council aligned on the vision and the priorities. So we're starting the process of that. as we get deeper into the goals and then some of those actions that will support that. And then the strategic plan is really intended to help clarify Ashland's future identity and strategic choices. Where we are in the process, we've arrived now at task 4 here, the strategic plan development. So we did our broad engagement. We had those action labs, which included some of your community partners as well as your city staff and your strategic planning team. And now we're getting ready, as I mentioned, for that workshop with the council in September to be able to finalize the draft strategic plan before it goes out for additional community review. As far as what we've heard from the community and the organization, first I just want to zero in on how we did the engagement, and then we'll talk through the themes that emerged from the engagement. So there were 18 community events. So we talked with over 1,500 people throughout those events, and had lots of print materials out in the community to help build awareness about the project. So 20 different locations with posters, with signage, direct outreach to nearly 300 residents by email, plus newsletters reaching over 10,000. There was a utility bill insert that went to everyone with a utility account. And then we had the survey where we received almost 2,300 responses from both the community and staff. Social media, so we utilized that to help build awareness and drive people towards the events and to take the survey. So there were posts throughout April through June. We also did one-on-one interviews with different community members representing different organizations. So there were 18 of those interviews that were held. And then we had youth-focused engagement. So that was completed with the Ashland Middle School students. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the materials you may have seen around town. There were the postcards that were shared, the fact sheets, and as I mentioned, we heard from over almost 2,300 people through the survey that closed in middle of June and made up about 11% of Ashland's population. There were optional demographic questions that highlighted the various cross sections of the community that we engaged with. And when we were doing the analysis of the demographic information, we recognized there were some gaps among youth, young adults, and the Hispanic Latino community. So in our in-person engagement, we tried to fill those gaps and reaching out specifically to those groups. So we were able to do some additional engagement with the middle school students and then try to connect with others through faith leaders or on-site presence at the YMCA, the playground. So which we tried to fill those gaps as best we could through some of the in-person events. This is just a snapshot of one of the postcards from the middle school. So again, we'll talk about the themes from this engagement, but in this particular instance, hearing about bookstores, clothing stores, but also safer crosswalks and just a safer feeling. So as far as what we heard, consistently, what we heard was working really well and strengths that the city should consider building on. So parks maintenance in both Lithia Park and some of your other city parks. This was the most praised city service. People really appreciate this. It's really important to them, and the city of Ashland's doing a great job in that regard. Community events. People had a lot to say, a lot of great things to say about your community events. City communication tools, people like the newsletter, your broadcast, the See, Click, Fix app experience, and the wildfire alerts are very helpful. Wildfire preparedness, we heard a lot of good things about the FireWise program and control burns. Police and fire, just general responsiveness and community presence. That was noted. And the Ashland Fiber Network, again, a real strength in your community as far as affordability, the local ownership of it, And last but certainly not least, Ashland's small town character. All strengths that were recognized. Whoops, sorry, it's going the wrong way. Okay, key community tensions. So the first one, growth versus preservation. So we had two very equal groups disagree on, new housing, one citing concerns of overdevelopment, wildfire evacuation, capacity, loss of Ashland's character, and the other group citing improving affordability and the need to retain families. So this is a key community tension that, you'll see how we've tried to address this in some of the outcomes. Compassion, the next one here, compassion versus enforcement on houselessness. So we've got residents that lean towards supportive, or that are really supportive of services and a housing first approach over enforcement focused responses. And then, both sides certainly raise safety and public space concerns, but there's definitely a split in your community on how folks feel about compassion versus enforcement. And then maintaining versus expanding. There's a strong preference for fixing existing parks, infrastructure, facilities before building new ones. And then tourism versus residents. So some folks are very frustrated that downtown appearances, the Shakespeare Festival and visitor amenities feel like they may be prioritized over resident needs. So that's another key community tension. The top, we have them listed as kind of the top 10 themes. This includes both the survey and the in-person engagement. So first, at the top of the list, housing affordability, dominant concern raised in the survey, raised by over 1/3 of our respondents. And the responses span workforce housing, senior housing, supply barriers, short-term rental impacts. And then there were a minority of the responses opposing further development, around concerns about community character and wildfire evacuation. Second theme is parks, trails, and recreation. So this is the most positively mentioned service area, alongside some criticism around maintenance. So the maintenance at the Parks Commission governance and impacts of houselessness in parks. Third, the unhoused population. So the most divided issue in the data. So a majority favor more shelter services and a housing first approach, while a smaller but vocal group calls for enforcement and reduced services. And again, both groups prioritizing safety concerns in public spaces. Wildfire and emergency preparedness was also in your top 5 here. So this was pretty much like nearly universal, not controversial. People really support this, want to see current efforts expanded and maintained. And then also highlighting, there are still concerns about evacuation route capacity. So something that people want the city to continue to think about and focus on. Next up, fiscal management and governance. So concerns about the structural budget deficit, fee increases, specific spending decisions, paired with calls for more transparency, clarity on council and staff roles. Let's see. Next one, institutional anchors. So this includes Southern Oregon University, the hospital, the school district. So just people expressing concern around the SOU's enrollment decline, reduced hospital services, the school district enrollment trends. So those are people, the perception is these are community level survival issues and also have links to housing affordability and demographic changes. And this residents expressed that they want the city to take a visible position also within, their own scope of influence. So being mindful of, what is the city's responsibility here. Let's see, young families and demographic change. So there's just widespread concern that Ashland is aging out of young families, and that this is driven by housing costs. It also has the cascading effects on school enrollment and just overall community vitality. There's also an expression here of just more youth teen facilities and after-school programming, which is really common. I think we hear this in nearly all of our community engagement that we do in any community in any state. So things for youth and teens to do. Let's see, as we get towards the end of the list here, next up is economy, business, and jobs. So there's concerns about the downtown economic decline and over-reliance on OSF tourism or Oregon Shakespeare Festival tourism, high commercial rents, permitting barriers for small business, and just a desire for a clear economic development strategy and a year-round events calendar. People want a central place that they can go to know what's going on in the community. Let's see, next up is infrastructure. So this includes roads, sidewalks, the city hall building, and water. These were the things we heard about. Residents want basic maintenance, so that they named things like roads and sidewalks prioritized over any new projects. They want better coordinated, less disruptive construction scheduling, particularly avoiding road work during peak fire season. And there was broad support expressed for the water treatment plant investment. And then last, but again, certainly not least, communication and civic engagement. So residents, credit the city for improved communication tools, but they feel that decisions are often predetermined before public input's gathered. And so they're calling for genuine two-way engagement rather than just information out and notifications only. So those were some of the engagement themes there. Before I go on, I just want to check in and see if you all have any questions about any of the top 10 themes.
Nope.
Nope.
Oh,
Okay.
well, hold on.
Thank you.
Councilor Sherrill.
Very comprehensive, as always. Thank you. Just a question to point 10. When I first read through the 5 pages of the summary you sent out a couple nights ago, I was thinking, wow, I cannot believe out of almost 2,300 people, there wasn't a whole category of people saying how the council needs to improve or staff needs to improve. Is that bunched into 10? Was there much negative feedback? And can you kind of talk about how that came in? Did you clump it into that box, or am I just projecting here?
Of how staff and council need to improve?
Well, was there negative? I see my inbox every day, and not that it's negative, but there's a lot of constructive criticism that comes in and a lot of feedback. And I just couldn't imagine seeing 2,284 responses and not having 1 in 10 have some kind of "you should do it better" message. So are those clumped into section 10 is my question.
I think some of it is maybe some of that's included in number 5 around just fiscal management and governance. So just calls for greater transparency and clarity on, what the council does, what staff's doing. So some of that maybe shows up, some of those comments maybe showed up in that area. And then, yes, maybe some of it, and I think, again, in the communication and civic engagement category, there's that genuine desire for two-way engagement. And I think our in-person experience, as when our team was out engaging in person at the events in Ashland, people expressed that they really appreciated being able to have a conversation. So I think, sometimes when you're pushing so much information out and people's experience or their opportunity is to email you or to submit something online, it's a much different experience than when they're getting to actually get questions and answers in real time. So I think that's one of the things that you will want to consider as we think about potential actions for that particular goal area, whatever comes to be around communication and civic engagement, is how can we increase those opportunities for the two-way engagement? Because I think overall people expressed a lot of things that they like that the city's doing, and certainly told us where there were things they want to see improvements, but their experience with council and staff, they want to be able to have two-way engagement. Does that help?
Yeah, that was, you nailed it. That's exactly the clarity I was looking for. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions about these high-level themes?
Nope.
Okay, just a few other, again, I just noted some stats here around our social media engagement. So again, a lot of views, widely shared. You can just see, some of the metrics there. And one thing, just to note about the Facebook the Facebook and Instagram engagement, they mirrored what we heard in the survey. So I think it's just always reassuring to see that we're seeing consistent themes across different tools. So again, just like the survey and in-person engagement, housing affordability, fiscal concerns, lack of youth teen activities, houselessness, and desire for better walking and biking were things that showed up in the social media engagement. And then in the youth engagement, again, it was even young people want a lot of the same thing. So that we had the middle school students do this placemat activity, which I showed you a little visual snapshot of what one of them wrote. But they expressed they really value parks and outdoor spaces. They want more things to do specifically for them. And what that looks like is shopping and dining variety. But they appreciate the small town character of their town. So that's also very important to them, as it is to the rest of the community. And they're very clearly aware of and concerned about the impacts of houselessness in the community. So that was another thing that came through in the youth engagement responses. So we appreciate the collaboration with the school district and our strategic planning team to help us get that opportunity to engage with them as well. So next up, we took all of these engagement results and just poured through the details, and we organized the results into 4 categories so that we could get into what we call our action labs, where we start to go in and refine and think about how can we take these engagement themes and begin to formulate some outcomes that we want to target based on what we heard from the community and the organization. So we organized them into 4 different themes. So they were active and connected, community vitality, safety and resiliency, and trusted and accessible government. In the action labs, this is where we start to test potential goal areas. So the goal areas were set up as these 4 things. And sometimes they shift and change as the conversations evolve. We also look at the data we gathered around the mission, vision, values, which I'll show you some of those themes here in a moment. And we start to throw out some draft statements based on what those themes were, and then gather people's reactions and input to those initial statements so that we can further refine those. And then we take all of the engagement results, we start to develop the draft outcomes, we start to look at potential actions, and then another really important piece that I don't want to get lost in this is we look at our strategic plan framework, and we ask staff is really important in this conversation because we ask them to help us connect it to existing work as well. The existing work that's happening across the city doesn't just come to a halt. And so we want to make sure that the strategic plan is going to work in alignment with the other plans and work that you have underway. So they help us to surface those things to make sure that things stay in alignment and stay on track. So that's what's happening during these action lab discussions. So what did the themes look like, and what sort of outcomes did we come up with? So in active and connected, we had our engagement context included this is what we shared kind of at a high level, and I can go into more detail on these as well. But in the engagement, we heard that people wanted to maintain existing parks and facilities. So a really strong desire to focus on that maintenance over new development. They wanted continued investment and expansion of trail systems, biking, walking, hiking. Community had specific facility requests, including things like a pool, the ice rink, pickleball courts. Those were all things we heard in the engagement results. There were really strong concerns shared about impacts on the safety and accessibility of parks due to the unhoused population. And then there was a desire expressed to see change in the current Parks and Recreation Commission governance to City Council. We also heard about, from just a broader community perspective, more opportunities to gather and gathering spaces. So again, people really like the events that you host and the events that are hosted around town, and they like nice places to be able to come together. I mentioned earlier there was a strong desire for a year-round events calendar, a centralized one that is reliable, that folks can go to and find out what's happening in the community. They want the community in general to be family friendly, so that could be more things for kids or teens to do around town, or just thinking about families when in designing spaces, and are we designing spaces that are geared towards families as well. And then just overall maintaining Ashland's unique character is very important to just about everybody. So those were some of the context that we went into the Action Lab conversations with. And so the outcomes that we zeroed on is like at the end of 5 years in this strategic plan, when we think about an active and connected community, what do we want to make sure that we accomplish? And the first one is to have parks, open spaces, and recreation facilities that are well maintained, sustainable, and prepared to meet future community needs. The second one, parks and recreation spaces are safe, welcoming, accessible for everyone. And then third, recreation opportunities that foster health, connection, and community for all residents and visitors. So when we think about the engagement results and the outcomes that we're driving towards, these are the three things that feel like they really summarize that. So I just want to pause on this particular goal area and see if there are any questions at this stage. Oops.
Councilor Kaplan.
Just to follow up on what you said about alignment with our current programs and current activities, and did you get validation that many of those items that you listed are in fact reflected in current activities, programs, budget that we have already allocated to those activities, or did you get some feedback there are areas that are really out of alignment and that we need to really shift resources and attention? That you feel like, are they already budgeted, or? No, I'm just reacting to what you said, that you tested. One of the goals here was to, in the Action Labs, was to test with staff whether there's alignment with our existing allocation of resources and budget and our existing programs.
Yes.
So I'm just asking you, did they confirm that was the case, or did they say that there are things that are out of alignment that we need to be shifting?
There are actions that we discussed that would help to bring it more into alignment. So I think especially thinking about the maintenance element of it, is it properly budgeted for, and are there enough resources to maintain things at the level that you want them, that the community wants them maintained? They discussed potential actions that could help to address that. So I think that is something that will be called out in the strategic plan. Something for the council to consider of different ways to work on that. And so we're still working with staff to refine what some of those actions will be, and that's what we'll talk about in September at the council workshop.
Great,
Does that help to answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, do we have other questions? Are we ready to continue?
Yeah, no other questions. Go ahead.
Okay, great, thanks. So next up, we have, after active and connected, community vitality. So for community vitality, some of the themes that we looked at here are the engagement context, housing. So just in general, we heard that there's just not enough affordable housing options in Ashland. Some of the specific needs in our engagement mentioned things like housing for workforce, for families, for seniors. The engagement results also said, we need to think about addressing barriers to housing permitting and development processes, and then concerns about negative impacts of short-term rentals. Additionally, in this particular goal area, economy. So there's a lot of concerns about economic decline in downtown, vacancies, like just general vacancies or high commercial rents. There's concerns about the over-reliance on the Shakespeare Festival for tourism activity. It was also expressed that people would like to see more economic diversity and a clear economic development strategy, more family-friendly dining options, and more high-paying job opportunities so people can afford to live and work in Ashland. We also looked at some of the engagement results, just pointed to just concerns about demographic change, demographics shifting to an aging community, losing young families. Strong connection mentioned is the housing affordability and families not being able to afford to move to or stay in Ashland. Concerns around cascading impacts of declining school enrollment. So how is that going to impact the city and other institutions? Call for youth facilities and such as pool, ice rink, teen spaces, after-school programs, and safe spaces for teens, and highlighting that the survival of SOU is critical, and strong concerns around the loss of the hospital. So these were all things that got grouped into this goal area of community vitality.
Sarah, could you go back one? Are you to the question point?
Oh, so I just wanted to highlight, these are some of that was what was considered for this the engagement results that were considered for this goal area. And these are the outcomes for it. But I can go back to the previous goal area if you'd like.
Yeah, if you could go back
To
one
active
more
and connected?
set. Because I guess I have a question. Yeah, one there. One more past that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I. Oh.
This one? Okay, are we there?
Yes. And so this whole section is the active and connected section.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That helps me contextualize
so this gives
it.
This gives you the engagement context. So I was trying to elaborate on these points a little bit more.
Okay,
And then the slide that follows each one are the outcomes that were defined in the action labs.
And then you go on to the next one that we had.
Yes, and so community
So-
vitality, those were all the things that were considered.
So I was just wondering, we see the youth activities element and the younger families, and we see it sort of repeating across these different sections. How, and you can just answer this at whatever point in the presentation it makes sense, but how do we take that, and knowing that they live in different themes, how do we decide kind of in a final plan where they would sit? Just kind of wherever it seems to be is the best fit if something is picking up in multiple areas?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's different ways that you can address it. You can, if you really want to elevate something or highlight that it does connect to more than one particular goal area, sometimes organizations will want to put the same action in multiple goal areas to just say this particular thing is moving towards, it helps to achieve all of these goals. Or sometimes they just, after you see the entire plan and how it comes together, then it becomes easier to discern, okay, well, it actually aligns most with this goal area. But at this stage in the game, we consider it, there's a couple themes I would say that overlap when we were looking at these goal areas, because we're still exploring and refining, and it's too early to say it must live here. So we included it in multiple conversations, because within those action labs, there were different participants that were cycling through. And so it was helpful to get varying perspectives on the same topics to see if others had additional things that to highlight or to offer to consider.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So the outcomes for community vitality include a resilient local economy that supports business growth, workforce opportunities, and housing affordability. The next one, a vibrant, welcoming community with thriving and high-quality public spaces. And third would be community assets are leveraged to meet evolving community needs. So they're high level and broad, but during the next workshop, you'll see where it starts to get specific. The next goal area.
Did you have a question?
Well, let me pause and see if there's any questions for this one.
There is one, Councillor Kaplan.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. So my question is that with these action labs, this particular one, the community vitality, a lot of this is outside the city government's control, really. It depends on a whole bunch of other things. Of course, we have some influence on that. And I'm wondering, in the action labs that came up with some of these outcomes and tested these outcomes, were there our community partners part of that discussion? SOU, I'm thinking OSF, I'm thinking the school district, those that have, there was, OSF was called out a couple of times. I'm wondering, were they involved in the discussion of these outcomes?
So not yet. We did invite them to participate, but given that they're in their busiest time of year, it was difficult to get a response. We talked with OSF during our initial engagement in the community leader interviews. And so the plan to be able, and again, it just, given the summer scheduling of these, it didn't allow for all of the community partners to participate at the level that we were hoping. And so as we get further into the process, it'll require some additional one-on-one outreach to those folks to have them meet with us if they have capacity to kind of talk through it individually. Or work through, I know Sabrina has meetings with some of those partners on a recurring basis. And so there'll be an opportunity for her to share updates and have conversations about some of the actions, or we'll set up virtual calls to review these same topics with them and be able to gather that perspective. There were, again, some of the partners were present, but specifically you mentioned OSF and SOU, and their availability did not align with the scheduling for those particular dates. So follow up to come.
Okay, good, thanks. And we're meeting with OSF tomorrow. Yeah. Sabrina and Tanya and I, for our quarterly meeting with them as council liaisons.
So yeah, we look forward to continuing to engage them in the process, and whether it's at this level or as we start to get more specific into the action planning, it would be great to come back to them and gather that perspective. Any other questions on community vitality before I move to the next one?
No.
Okay, great. So next up we have safety and resiliency. So it's just to highlight, you can see the context bullets here, but a couple other things. So here we considered the comments we received around the unhoused population. So again, just safety and accessibility of public spaces, engagement results really split in how people want the city to respond to the unhoused population. So again, that tension I mentioned around half asking for more shelters and services and the other half asking for more enforcement, removal from public spaces and reduced services. So all of that was considered. Wildfire and emergency preparedness. So there was a lot of praise to the Firewise program. People really appreciate that, as well as the prescribed burns and community education. So people want to see that continued, increased. And then I mentioned earlier just continued concerns over the evacuation route capacities and housing developments with current wildfire risk. So are we going, how do we continue housing development when we already have so much risk and concerns about that evacuation capacity? Let's see. Outcomes for this particular area. Oh, I'm sorry. One more piece of context that I forgot to mention was the infrastructure piece. And so for infrastructure, just prioritizing maintenance of existing roads and sidewalks. The water treatment plant is broadly supported. So there's something that will go into the strategic plan just to kind of, that work is underway and continues. And then improving project management and or communication of projects to the public. So that's, again, just when there's, especially like traffic or road safety or road projects and things happening, how do we best share information with the community and make sure that we're partnering to the best of our ability to mitigate the impacts. As we learned, some of these projects were not always city-led projects. Some of them we learned as we got further into the engagement were maybe ODOT-led projects, but nonetheless, a lot of concerns about how it impacts people and what can we do to alleviate that. So the outcomes that were highlighted based on that context for this goal area are reliable, resilient infrastructure supports a safe and sustainable community. Community members are prepared for and resilient during emergencies and natural hazards. Community services are coordinated to promote safety, stability, and well-being. And regional collaboration strengthens public safety, emergency response, and community resilience. So those are the things, the outcomes that we would be targeting for this particular goal area. Any questions before I move to the last one?
Nope.
Okay. Next up, we have trusted and accessible government. So to just give it some context, again, we heard about the governance and financial management, which included just concerns about structural city budget deficit, spending decisions, fee increases. There's a desire to see the city prioritize maintenance of existing assets before building or expanding. Complaints that decision-making sometimes feels unilateral or not reflective of community input. And then a desire to see the change in the Parks and Recreation Commission governance to City Council. In the area of community engagement, again, there was a lot of appreciation for increased and improved communications from the city. People want to see more. So we like what you're doing, and please expand upon that, was what we heard. And then more opportunities for community input. So again, that two-way engagement. And then this piece is just, this last piece I'll mention around community engagement is just improved clarity and transparency for how the input's used in decision making. So it's that closing of the feedback loop. If we're going to do all this engagement and communicating, make sure that people know how their input was used so that you can build trust with your community. So the outcomes for this particular goal area include: city services are efficient, accessible, and responsive to community needs. City facilities and resources are managed strategically to support long-term service delivery. Clear, transparent, and accountable governance builds community trust. And community members are engaged and empowered to participate in local government. So those are the things we would be targeting for the goal area of trusted and accessible government. Any questions about this one?
I have a question.
Sure.
The word transparency comes up in a lot of conversations. And I wonder if we have a different understanding, if different people understand it in different ways, right? So our information is public. We've done a new website in the last 2 years to make it easier to find information. But it feels like there's a difference between making something available and maybe there's another step that we need to take, which is around, and maybe this is the part that I'm not quite sure, and I'm wondering if more details came up when you were talking to people, because it's one thing to make information available, but I think that sometimes just doing that doesn't feel from the receiver side like it is transparent, even though it is available, and we've tried to make it easier to get to and that kind of thing. So did they give you any more sort of nuanced discussion points or anything around what is it that is missing in this from our side?
Again, I think it's some of what I already mentioned as far as just, I think where people sometimes get lost, and again, I can dig through the engagement results some more to see if there's other specific mentions of what transparency means to people. But I would say at a high level, and based on our experience in working with other communities, is the closing of the feedback loop. I think so many people can gather the information that they want to see online. Yes, it's all very accessible, and they can participate in the survey and engage using whatever the tools are that are put before them. But then the decision gets made, and that's oftentimes where it stops. And so then it feels all of that work that went into transparency on the front end isn't there's not as much effort put in on the back end to make sure that people understand the decision that was made, why it was made, and how their input was used. And I think that's just so many times where we see local government kind of missing the mark on that.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. And I will also just add to that, I think, again, working with so many local governments where budgets oftentimes get cut initially is, when you're having to look at all the different things that you might try to do to balance a budget, oftentimes communications and engagement efforts can be on the chopping block or not given adequate resources to be able to do that. I think sometimes people feel like it's so easy and so simple to be able to tell that story, to make sure you're communicating in all of the various communication styles and at the right level where it's going to reach people. And there's more effort and strategy that goes into it, I think, than people really understand.
Yeah, we suffered mightily several years ago from a sort of a convenient budget process that took out our communications person for several years, and we learned, and I think what we've done over the last several years has really been a huge boon, but it's important for us to understand what is the gap that's still there that people are feeling.
Yeah, and I think, again, your engagement results reflect that. People really like what's been happening on the communications front. But I think transparency really, if there's a little more to be done, it's the closing the loop piece on the back end.
Great, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions before I jump into the draft mission, vision, and values?
No.
Okay, so this piece, so the mission statement. The mission statement, I believe, should be really pragmatic and straightforward. You don't want too much flowery language. It describes your purpose, why the city of Ashland, why the city government organization exists. This is what it is that you do. And so the themes we heard are core city services, stay in the city's lane. Maintain, don't expand, safety and resiliency, community vitality, committed to transparency and accountability, financial responsibility, safeguarding what people love most about Ashland, and acknowledgement that the city of Ashland's future is tied to the health of the community pillars, so OSU, OSF, and the school district and the hospital. We heard that a lot when we were asking people about the purpose. And so, we just zeroed in on, again, a very pragmatic statement. So we provide dependable public services and infrastructure that protect and enhance what makes Ashland safe, livable, and vibrant. And again, this is just an early draft that we've begun to vet with staff and through the Action Lab process and some of the partners, but welcome the input from the council, or I guess reactions at this stage at a high level. Any initial?
Councillor
Duquesne? I don't know if you want to pause and see all three, mission, vision, values, so you can kind of see the intersection between the three.
Yeah, let's see all three of them first, and then we'll come back.
It might help before we launch into.
But you'll be first when you come back.
Okay. So the next piece, and again, I think seeing all three, you don't want to have redundancy unless it's intentional across all three. So there's different things that show up in the different elements of this. So the vision statement, this is thinking about the destination. Where is the city organization headed together? And some of the themes we heard in engagement, preservation over growth, diverse and strong local economy, safety and resiliency, maintaining our vibrancy, which can translate it to like students, young families, strong cross collaboration among departments, and stronger staff understanding of city priorities and direction, and being a destination employer. So again, thinking about this is not necessarily your big, broad community vision, but this is a vision for the city organization. So something that's going to guide the council and staff in delivering services and helping to cultivate what you want your community to be. The third piece of this, and then we'll get into your feedback, would be the values. And so these are really important for the organization itself. Values are the foundation. It describes how the employees work, how they lead, how they serve. And where values show up in organizational cultures is things like employee recognition, so how employees are recognized, employee performance evaluations, communications across the organization. So I feel that the values really help to define an organizational culture. And so we do a lot of engagement with employees on making sure that these values are going to translate across all of the departments and divisions and that they're going to be useful. And we try to zero in on, we don't want too many. We don't want them to, if you can't remember the values, they're not very useful. So we try to keep it succinct and then be able to expand on what these words mean and the definitions. So service is the first one. This was at the top of the list for everybody. Employees, the city employees are here to serve the community with professionalism, responsiveness, respect, and a commitment to excellence. Stewardship, we care for public resources, focus on core services, and make thoughtful decisions. We communicate, take ownership, and follow through on our commitments. Collaboration, we work as one organization and alongside our community, building meaningful relationships through listening, engagement, kindness, and mutual respect. We value diverse perspectives and strong partnerships to achieve shared goals. Preparedness, we invest in our people, infrastructure, and planning to meet today's needs and build a resilient future. And last step, innovation. We embrace learning, creativity, forward thinking, and continuous improvement to better serve our community. So these are things that need to be applicable to all of the departments and to every employee across the city. So now that you see those three elements, the mission, vision, and values, I'd love to gather the council's high-level feedback at this stage.
Councillor Duquesne.
My question in all of this is that I appreciate the 5 or 6 pages that you gave us and we took a look at, but I don't see these 3 elements in here. Did I miss something? It's not in there.
I think the engagement memo was just the
right. So my question
engagement
is
around the goals, but we can do a supplemental that had some of the engagement results around the mission, vision, values.
Yeah, these 3 that you just introduced to us, you said you wanted to have some feedback. I would love to be able to have these 3, the mission, the value, and sent to us so that I could really dissect it. Because I do appreciate this, but before we cement anything, so if you could send those 3 to us, I'd appreciate it. And part 2 of my question is, you said we'd be getting back together in September. So do we have a date for that yet?
It's on the look ahead.
Oh, we do? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you bet.
And you will be sending those 3?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sarah. Just a quick question. So as we kind of continue on, can you give me just a quick timeline and logistics on when we get to the part where we have to start making some decisions and prioritization? Because it's great, but it's everything.
Yes, this is kind of the foundational piece. So the next part, it will be at the September workshop where you'll get to see. So right now you're kind of seeing the framework of the plan, the mission, the vision, the values, the goal areas, and those outcomes. And then the detail comes next. That's where we are in the action labs. We started to define what some of those actions could be, and we're still working to refine those with staff. Again, making sure that existing city work is layered in there so you can see the full picture. So then you'll have the draft actions, which I think starts to open up conversations about priorities and prioritization criteria. So that'll be part of that next workshop, but we have to have the foundational elements first before we can get into the details.
Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Sarah. Great presentation and great work. This is a huge up for the city now moving forward, and I'm a mission statement nerd. So could you go back, please?
Yes.
And I'm really looking for inspiration when I look at a mission statement. And I think that our vision and our values are aligned, and I can't argue with anything you've put in the draft mission statement. But if I could design a more generic, boring mission statement, I don't think I could. So I'm hoping that, being the creative team that you are, you can put some spice into this to give it some marketing appeal too. I mean, some of my favorite ones, Patagonia, we're in the business to save our planet. True South Solar's mission on or solar on every roof and best jobs ever. So, let's put something in here that's, just a little, something with spice. And I just challenge you to that because I know you can do it.
Okay.
Less words,
All
same flavor, but give us some Ashland love.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sarah, could you go to the vision slide, please? So I know that we had some of these discussions earlier on about the fact that this plan is going to be primarily about the city's operation. But this, I remember us having a conversation about that the vision would be a vision that other entities in the city, in the community, could kind of attach their work to. And it feels like this vision is specifically about the city municipal operations rather than a statement. So we had shared, I think, early on with me a couple of different types of community strategic plans and the different ways they talked about themselves. And I remember one of them was very much a just the facts, ma'am, kind of process of we're the city organization and this is what we do. And other ones had a vision statement that said something about their town. Our town is the gateway to, I can't remember which town that was, but I remember reading that.
Forest Grove one, yes.
The Forest Grove one. Our community is the gateway to the Cascades, or whatever it was saying, and it had some descriptors in it about the community, about how the community saw itself in that high level. And I'm wondering if, because to me, nobody else can really convene a strategic vision for the community besides the city. And so is there a way for us to broaden out to essentially broaden out the draft vision so that it is more of a statement of the whole community, and then the plan that we have really digs into what is the municipal government's element of it, but it leaves some space open for other people. So when we look at the, housing pops up all through here, but we don't build housing, right? So how do the housing producers in our community come into a strategic plan if our vision is about the city working together with the community rather than the community, which includes the city, going after or protecting its character or kind of building up what it sees for its future? Does that make sense?
Kind of. I know we had talked at length about, the difference between a community vision and a strategic plan. And the engagement process is a little bit different. So we set up your engagement process and we had some broad questions and we heard about different needs. I think, as somebody alluded to earlier, some of those being outside the purview of city services. So what we had talked about were being able to capture what some of those things are that may not fall within the purview of city services and have like the call out boxes or opportunities for partnership. And I think the engagement data that we have will be able to support that. But when we think of like the big broad vision statement, I would feel less comfortable crafting a vision statement for your whole community because our process wasn't necessarily designed. If I were going to be crafting an entire vision statement for the Ashland community, I would want more community representation in this phase of the project. So I'm not saying no, but I don't know that you would be as satisfied with, or that maybe your whole community would be as satisfied with the result, because there may be some elements missing to it or some conversations that were not had as through this strategic planning process. I think you've got a lot to build on, but to get that big, broad community statement, there would need to be more engagement with more partners. It would be a stretch, I guess, is to say it most succinctly.
Yeah, I guess when after we had our conversations, I thought we were moving more on a path of being able to have this broader vision, and then making the plan include the strategic elements for the city, and that was part of why we had such a robust engagement process. But if I understand it correctly, you're saying that that's something else we need to do separate from this, and that we can attach this to likely in some fashion. But if we want to have a vision statement for the whole community, that's a different process.
There's a lot more engagement that goes into a process like that.
Okay.
But I think what we do have are the elements that you saw in like that Forest Grove plan, where the partnership opportunities. There are lots of partnership opportunities that that could be highlighted based on the engagement results that we heard. And that's why there would be a lot of value in being able to connect back with SOU and OSF and some of your partnering agencies. Some of those folks were present in the action labs, but not all of them. And so and the folks who were present were able to highlight a lot of great partnership opportunities. So those, I think, would be wonderful to call out in the plan. And I think if there's additional direction from the whole council to kind of broaden a review process for a vision statement, to expand on what we have a little bit and make sure that it really fits the bill to be a community vision statement, we could do that work. I would want to make sure that that's something that the whole council wants.
Okay. Councilor Kaplan.
Thanks. This is that's something to think about. It seems to me that there's elements of it already here. I think just the last line, resilient, vibrant, and economically strong. I think a vision for our whole city is, I think all of our partners would want to be a community that's resilient, vibrant, and economically strong. So I think you've got something to work on there that may not be such a stretch. I don't know about yeah. So anyway, that's I just offer that.
Yeah. Well, and maybe I know that this conversation was one we just had together. I would hope that maybe that the council might be interested in doing whatever that additional work is. I'm going to read you Forest Grove's Forward 2040 vision statement. In 2040, Forest Grove serves as the gateway to Oregon's rural tranquility and urban innovation, situated between mountains and metropolis. We are a destination with a vibrant downtown and local economy where independent businesses thrive, education inspires and provides opportunity, recreation amenities abound, and neighbors truly connect. Through thoughtful, sustainable growth and collaborative spirit, we cultivate a high-quality, safe, and affordable life, honoring our history and welcoming all who visit and call Forest Grove home. And that's the kind of thing that I would hope that we could have, because I could, and I think what I'm hearing is just we need to do some more process if we want what we built here so far, and this is incredible work. I mean, I love what I'm seeing here because it mirrors what I'm hearing in the community, and it is allowing us to focus. What I would love to have us do, though, is to have a statement like that where our chamber can look at it and say, my role in this building, this thing that we've all agreed to is this, and the builders could look at it, and the school district could look at it, and SOU, because we've all been part of building that vision, we can all understand what our pieces are. Because if there's one thing we know around this dais, it's that we don't have enough money to do everything that this community needs to do, not by a long shot. So what is that bigger piece? And so we don't necessarily need to take it up today, but I would hope that we could build off of this strategic plan and at least get to that vision piece appropriately, I know some communities have gone down the path where they create this very detailed, comprehensive plan, and then the city manages all those relationships to try to get everything implemented. And I don't think we're up for that. I think we can count on our community to come forward and invest itself. But I would love to see us move forward and create something like that. So maybe that's a further conversation down the road. But since we're just now, this is the first time we've seen these visions and vision themes and all that sort of thing. I'm wondering, what is the best way? We're late in the evening, and I think for a lot of people, we need to sit with it and kind of look at this and absorb it. So what would be the best way, Sarah? I know that if we answer you back directly, it's not coming necessarily from the full council, but what would you prefer in terms of us being able to give you kind of more in-depth response?
Yeah, I think what would be most helpful would be to sit with it and be prepared to talk about it at the workshop. I heard already that the mission, we want, something with a little more spice and less words, more Ashland love. So I think that gives me a little bit of feedback on that, of kind of the tone you're looking for. And for the vision statement, I think it would be helpful if, like at some point before September, the council could just be clear on the type of vision statement that you want. If you want to make sure that it's more of a community vision flavor, I want to be able to know that in the near future here, so that we can kind of recalibrate our plans for September and try to get a little bit broader engagement on that, to make sure that it's something that your partner organizations, everybody supports. Would be helpful to know. So I don't need all your direct feedback right now. You can sit with it, but that high level direction on what we're doing with the vision statement would be helpful. And then just be prepared to share your thoughts in more detail at the September workshop, and we'll send everything out ahead of time. And if we make any modifications or have other options for you to look at, we'll make sure that those are sent out ahead of time too, so that you have some time to sit with it.
Great, thank you. So it sounds like you've got some feedback on the mission statement of shifting some language and a little bit more fire maybe to that. And then, is there agreement among the council that we would be interested in moving to a broader community vision statement? Because that's the other piece that Sarah needs guidance on tonight. So as we head nodding, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound lost, but back to one of the questions you posed. Originally, we talked about this, and this was going to be the city's long-term strategic plan, and we're going to get community input on it. And now we're going to have a city's long-term strategic plan with like a forward-facing community-branded mission statement. Is that the question? Because I would support that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in like I got like 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
What I think happened was that when we first started down this path of a strategic plan, because there's so many different ways a municipal government can lead one of these, that there were some different assumptions about what that would look like. And what would it be just exactly about the city operation, or would it be this higher level piece? And then when we started into it, that we had that conversation of saying, well, yeah, it needs to be really the city's plan, but who else would ever convene a process to create an agreed upon vision for the future of our community if it's not the city? And so it sounds like what we're looking at here is that there could be some ability in this, as we finish out this contract, to move towards that broader vision within which our strategic plan for the city operations is nestled. And the question is, do we want to have that?
I'm okay with adding some flair and brand to it. Yes, of course.
Yes. Okay, so does that give you what you need, Sarah?
Yeah. Yes, it does. And we'll send out, you'll receive these slides, so you'll have all this content, and then we'll work on it, and we'll work with staff to think about how we do that, the rest of that engagement.
That sounds great. So we have one person who has signed up to speak with us this evening about our strategic plan. You'll have 2 minutes, Linda Adams, and we will move on. We'll close up when she's done. While she's coming up, though, thank you so much, Sarah. This has been so exciting to watch this go through, and people have been coming up to me and telling me that they filled out a survey, or they talked to somebody, or they responded somewhere. And I know there's a lot of really good excitement in the community, and that's because of your leadership and your team, and leading us through this process of helping us think through as a community what we should be focused on. And I'm just so grateful to see this. I've been beating the strategic plan drum for, well, since I came on council, and that's been a while. So it's great to see where we are. Linda Adams, please.
I think I'll save my comments for tomorrow, but I'll just leave you with this. Let's be physically responsible, yes, but let us not allow physical challenges to be an excuse for austerity. Okay. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, that closes us up. Thank you for your patience as well, Sarah. We had a number of community issues this evening that took a bit longer than we had anticipated. But looking forward to the next conversation, and thank you all for your great work.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, we'll just leave you with what happens next. So we have in September that the council and leadership team workshop to review, refine the strategic plan framework. And so we'll talk more about those mission, visions, values. You'll get to see all the goals and outcomes and the details of the actions. And that's where we'll gather council's input on that. We'll start to make those final refinements. And that'll tee you up for prioritization. I don't know if we'll have time to do the prioritization in that workshop, but you'll have the full plan and to be able to start thinking about how you want to prioritize the actions within it after adoption. So that's what's coming next, and then we'll begin finalizing that design and prepare the document for council adoption. And start thinking about, once the adoption happens, we'll also begin thinking about how to launch implementation. And so we'll have a plan. We get the plan to you, and then we also make sure that you're set up for success to begin carrying it forward and start to build some momentum right out of the gate. So that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And with that, we have completed our agenda. Meeting is adjourned.